I've started the recording. It is 6:32, and I would like to make a motion to open the February 18th, 2021 Town Board as Police Commission meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to
to the flag
of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we are all here now. And so with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Police Commission agenda as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And any announcements? I think you can.
I just have kind of one announcement, more like a thank you. I just wanted to thank Dawn and Chris over at the Highway Department. We had experienced some issue with fueling up at Sunoco last month. And so Dawn worked very quickly to get us, the police department, set up to fuel at the highway garage. And so we are going to actually continue that. And we believe that it will actually, it will ultimately end up in a savings for us. But I did want to thank Dawn and Chris. They were super responsive and super quick to help us out when we had when we had an inability to access, our normal fuel at Sunoco, and just really appreciative of everything they did for us. And as I said, this looks like it will be a cost saving measure for us in the end as well. So
Nice. Yeah, no, it should save money, hopefully. Great. I appreciate that. I didn't know they did that. That's nice. I have no announcements. If no one else does, we will move on to the public input. And so if anyone has public comment, raise your hand, and please, 3 minutes. And I'd like to hear what everyone has to say. Mr. Tom Jelliffe. I can unmute you. Let me. Yes.
Thank you, and good evening to everyone. Actually, I wanted to follow up on something the chief said. As somebody who worked for many years with the New York City Department of Sanitation, I just wanted to extend congratulations and appreciation to the towns and also the villages' snow teams. They do a fabulous job. Thank you. I just wanted to use this occasion to sort of officially mention an issue that came to my attention, and which I have included in emails to Supervisor Betez and Chief Lucchese. As part of my work with UACT to participate in the EO 203 process, I had been doing some research on the state's website regarding crime rates in New Paltz and Ulster County and neighboring communities, and discovered that for New Paltz, the 2019 crime rate data, which is data that's ultimately reported to the FBI to give us all our official crime rates, was missing, alone amongst the Ulster County police forces. I followed up with the state, and they indicated that that information had not been reported. It wasn't sort of an oversight on the state's part. It was something that had not been reported. To follow up on this, I reported that, as I said, to Supervisor Betez and Chief Lucchese. The answer I got back is a little troubling. It was essentially no answer, except that it had something to do with the county's LERM, which I believe stands for Law Enforcement Records Management. I followed up with the both of you to see what the process might be for correcting this data gap. And apparently there's no prospect of its being fixed, or no definite prospect of its being fixed. I frankly just can't believe that, or that the answer is so completely zero. I simply got to believe that Chief Lucchese would not let the county LERM off the hook that easily, if it was in fact their responsibility for reporting to the state and they had not done so. So anyway, I'm just putting this on the record, and hope that some more informative information would be forthcoming at some point. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I'd like to make a comment.
Please go ahead.
A request has been made a couple of times, particularly by my wife Maggie Bebe, about opening up the 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. meetings of the New Paltz Police Reform and Reinvention Committee. It is our understanding that if there is a member of the town board on it, in that committee, whether attending or not, that the meetings should be opened up to the public. And the request has been made, as I said, more than once, and we have not heard anything from the town board regarding that request. Thank you.
I'd be interested in where you get this understanding that if a town board member attends, it needs to be open to the public, but I've never heard anything about that. Maybe if there was a quorum, but an individual member, I'd be interested to hear where you heard this.
I'm clear of information that if there is a member of the committee that's an elected official, then it has to be opened up to the public, whether that individual is there or not.
So we don't have we can go back to it, but there is no member of the town board on this committee, but we'll look into it. So.
Well, you have the liaison Dan Torres on it. That's an appointment.
We've had this conversation before. So I'm not a member of the committee. I'm a liaison to the committee. I don't attend their meetings, nor do I have any voting authority on that board. I'm there for the sole purpose that if there is a question, I get an email from them and then I will answer that question for them. We've also talked in the past as well about kind of how those meetings fit in with open meetings law. And we've definitely talked about this before, but the Committee on Open Government has rendered an opinion on this already as well, that these meetings do not have to follow the same guidelines that we do per se as a town board. That being said, I think the committee has also indicated that they do strive to try to be as open as possible. And I know they've had a number of community sessions with people. I believe you've been invited to some of those as well too.
Okay, I hear loud and clear. We will submit a formal request that specifies action will be coming from an attorney so that this thing can be properly addressed. Thank you.
Sure. And just again, for the record, that opinion from the Committee on Open Government is available online as well, because other communities have requested on it. It's been reported in the local press.
There's no reason why the minimum, even if you're correct, why the minimum has to be the maximum when the EO 203 clearly requires transparency and communication with the community. So those meetings should be open.
All right. Thank you. Well, no. So, any more comments? If not, we will make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to move into executive session to discuss matters of personnel. I'm going to pause the recording and put everyone in the waiting room except for Chief Lucchese, who I would like to invite into executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
Aye.
And so, and nothing personal, anyone? So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 there. I'm going to pause the recording now. I've started the recording. I'm going to admit everyone. It is 6:56 p.m. everyone is coming back in, I'd like to make a motion to come out of executive session. No actions are being taken.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And so we are, before we move on to item 2, during the executive session, I took the opportunity, while all the people were talking, to kind of go back and look at the email exchange that was mentioned earlier about the police records. And I'm not sure I would interpret it the same way that it was characterized in the comment. And I'm wondering if the chief would be willing to comment on that at all.
I mean, what I can do is at least shed a little bit of light. I don't have a resolution. So just to give the board an understanding, when we, up until 2018, we were using our in-house records management system was PD Manager. And the statistics were, we were using the uniform crime statistics or uniform crime reporting statistics. And so it collects data on 8 Part 1 crimes, whereas incident-based reporting, and then in 2019, we transitioned to the county's LERMS, Law Enforcement Records Management System. LERMS collects data using incident-based reporting. It collects more information regarding crimes. These statistics are tallied differently. And so, we report it out to DCJS. What I can say at this point is that for whatever reason, DCJS has considered us in the testing phase. There's 2 things that we were able to figure out is that we need to be, our statistics need to be reported using the National Incident-Based Reporting System, NIBRS. And I took a note here that instead, though, we are right now, the system is set for us to report under the legacy format, which is one of the issues, and we're trying to resolve that. The other thing we're trying to figure out is why we're deemed in this testing phase. So we have provided DCJS with all of our information, and we're working with them to try and get them anything else that they need so that we can get those statistics up on their website, and then figure out how we can move forward. So we have a point of contact with DCJS, and we are actively working with them. I'm hoping that there'll be some sort of resolution in the next week or 2, at least knowing, hey, we're set and this is what we can expect. I have been corresponding with Mr. Jalif. As I explained to him, this was all news to us. We're part of the county system, so I don't understand why. I had no idea that we weren't transmitting where everyone else in Ulster County was without any issue. And that I will follow up and let them know whenever we have that information, as far when we know the information is readily available, we'll certainly get that to them.
Thank you. But that answer is completely more informative than the 1 sentence you gave me in your email.
The 1 sentence I gave you,
you did not want to risk a hypothetical.
Again,
no information in it.
What I said, some of this information is information I got after my course. Most of this is that information I've just gotten in the last few hours in speaking to the sergeant who's working on this.
You did not say you would get back to me in the future with a fuller set of information.
Okay, we're not gonna go back and forth on this. I'm glad I brought it up. I didn't mean to bring it up to cause this issue. I appreciate the chief explaining this, and it looks like we're working on this. So I hope that helped a little bit. So thanks.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to make a big issue of this. I'm sorry.
Nope.
I only brought it up to try to clarify it. But we're now we're on item 2. So anyone's here for the town board meeting, we're going to be a while. You guys could relax for a bit. And with that, I'd like to discuss and review the 2021 Police Department in-service training.
So for our 2021 in-service training, we're trying to make up for lost training in 2020 due to COVID. So at this point, we're looking at March and April to conduct our CFR procedural justice training, as well as the Intimate Partner Violence Intervention Program on board training with the DA's office. So we have 4 cycles of training that we've scheduled. Members will attend one of those cycles. It's a 3-day training period, and that'll be in March and April dates. June and July, we are going to be scheduling our firearms and defensive tactics training. July and August, we're going to be looking at scheduling reality-based training. That's something we'll do in tandem with SUNY New Paltz, and looking actually to see if there are some other agencies in the county who are interested in onboarding with this as well. September will be emergency vehicle operations training, which is something we didn't do last year because of COVID. And in October will be our defensive tactics, our fall defensive tactics with our night firearms. And then in November, we will be doing part 3 of the DCJS procedural justice component, which is the implicit bias training. And we've left some room we've left some room throughout the rest of the calendar year to incorporate any of the training recommendations that the Reform and Reinvention Collaborative brings forward in their final report as well. So that's our training. That's our in-service training cycle only. That doesn't include outside trainings that we will send members to as when opportunities arise. And I don't know if anybody has any questions about any of that. The only other thing I'll add is my plan is to email you all the dates. We have the specific dates set for the IPVI, CFR, and procedural justice training. So I will email you all those dates, and you're more than welcome to encourage you all to attend any one of those sessions just to see what the training is about.
Is it possible, Chief, to invite members of the commission to the procedural justice trainings session specifically?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, if there are no more questions, we'll move on to item 3. This is a motion to refer to the town board to approve the transfer of $6,500 from the 2021-4125 budget line to computer reserve into the police department computer reserve fund. I have a
The
second.
motion, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And so the next is a motion to refer to the town board the acceptance of Teresa Hart's resignation as part-time dispatcher.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This next one is a kind of a discussion and review of the Intimate Partner Violence Intervention draft protocol. So I'll hand it over to you, Chief. Everyone has a copy of this.
Yep, I send everyone a copy of this. So the Intimate Partner Violence Intervention Program was started through a grant, a national grant, and it began with the City of Kingston. It's now includes the Town of Saugerties Police Department and will include the New Paltz Police Department. And this is, it was implemented through the District Attorney's Office as a means to try and reduce victimization from intimate partner violence. And it's really a collaborative effort that includes probation, the police department, and the District Attorney's Office. Obviously, it's a restorative justice program that has been seen success in the City of Kingston and in Saugerties. And so, you know, we're looking forward to joining this program. The protocol is lengthy. I don't know if anybody has any questions in regards to anything that's in that protocol. This is what we will be training all of our people on with the District Attorney's Office. Cassandra Seifert, who is the chief investigator or the head of the Intimate Partner Violence Intervention Program, and Assistant District Attorney Elizabeth Comey Mills will be doing the actual training for us in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
I will say I like the letters that are given to the people at the different level A, B, C, D. I learned a bunch reading this, but I like that it kind of lays out, here, it puts it in writing, which I think is, and this is where you stand, and if you do this, this is what will happen. I think that's always pretty useful, especially if it's given to people. So I like this program. I'm glad you guys are doing it.
We're excited, we, as I said, it's been successful in Kingston, it's been successful in Saugerties, and the idea is that what I like about this is that it's not, it's offender centric. Traditionally when we handle domestic violence, everything is victim centric. It's the responsibility of the victim, and that's not always possible. And so here, we're making the offender aware that their behavior is not something that should be tolerated. We're working with them to try and correct that behavior so that it doesn't happen anymore. And so there is a community intervention aspect to this. So we are working with some community partners that if we do get to that point where we talk about a repeat offender or a B offender, that we have these custom community intervention programs. I was able to witness one in the city of Kingston a couple of years ago. It's powerful, and I do think it helps. So we're definitely excited about it.
Thanks. Any other comments? If there's no comments, we'll move on to number 6, discuss revision of the New Paltz Police Department policy and procedure, 107, persons in crisis.
So just on this, the revision itself was just the addition of, and I think you all have a copy of this, was 107.5. And this was really the direct result of a conversation that Randall Leverett brought forward at one of our reform and reinvention collaboratives. There was a 60 Minutes piece a month or so ago related to the use of ketamine by EMS when they respond to people in crisis, and how that has how in cases it's caused serious injury to individuals. And so in our discussions, Randall had brought it up, and I indicated that we have a directive on this. This is something we are aware of. We had a directive prohibiting the request of any type of sedative to be administered to anybody that we're dealing with as a person in crisis. And he had suggested, and the committee wholeheartedly agreed, that it's something that should be memorialized in policy, not just a written directive. So we added the section 107.5, which basically reads that it acknowledges that we lack the requisite medical, psychological education expertise to determine whether administration of ketamine or any other sedative is warranted when dealing with a person in crisis, and that we shall never request EMS administer ketamine or any other sedative to a person in our custody. So it's there, it's memorialized, it's gone out to our people. It's being reviewed at shift briefings, and members are signing off on it. But like I said, this was directly related to the policy review that the committee has done, and so I'm thankful for them for bringing that forward as well.
Thanks for doing that, Rob. I saw the 60 Minutes on that, and it was really pretty shocking. So thanks for bringing that to our attention. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I can't really, like I said, we had a directive in prior to that, but it really was Randall and the committee and Diana and the committee stuff that they discussed when we look at policy. And so the reason it's in there is because that was their thoughts and their suggestion, and made sense. And the idea that a directive comes and goes, maybe with me as chief of police here, that's the directive, but now it's in policy, so it's memorialized in perpetuity. So
thank you, Randall, and the members of the committee.
Yes, thank you, Randall.
Yeah, thank you. With that, maybe I'll hand it over to the monthly report.
I did have one other thing I just wanted to review, and I apologize I didn't include it on our agenda, but I did include it in the packet. It was the Step 1 program. Let Us Help the Helpers. It's a program that we're doing with through Chris Dennehy at Step 1. And really, this is what we talk, when we talk about having something in place to provide for the mental and emotional well-being of our people. We're working on the chaplaincy program, and this is just another way to try and help first responders. This was actually something that Phil Kraus brought forward in our discussions about well-being, officer well-being, and the direct result of some high stress situations that our people have had to respond to. Phil works with Chris Dennehy from Step 1, was speaking to him about this. Chris was really receptive and thought, having something like this was a great idea. And he mentioned that there are specific staff members they have on who are available and to train or trained in this, and that can be available for counseling for officers and other first responders. But again, it's a program for specifically here for us. And so we put this out to all of our people. It's when in an email version, it's hanging on bulletin boards in the station, on locker room doors. And so, we're really trying to, make it, change the culture of policing where it's not a weakness to ask for help. And that's really what we're trying to push amongst, all of our people. We deal sometimes with some pretty crummy situations, to say the least. And so we want to make sure that we're taking care of them so that they can properly take care of the community. So this was, again, something that brought forward by Officer Kraus. And so just want to thank him. And I didn't know if anybody had any questions about that.
I did. Just like this thing about, obviously not shaming or creating a culture where, asking for help is welcome. Is there also a culture of when, obviously, Chief, when you're like, hey, that was a rough situation. I know it. To going and saying, hey, why don't you take a moment to get some support, and to kind of be a little more proactive in that? Or is it kind of like, how does it go normally from your sense with the protocol?
There are certain situations we're going to mandate that an officer go to EAP. So when you talk about a high stress, critical situation. So, we had a child that officers responded to a child that was drowning this summer. We had the person who was being dragged underneath the tractor trailer on Main Street. In all of those situations, the people that responded to that call, we proactively make them go to EAP, so that we try and to do away the idea of the stigma that even if you have no choice, and everybody responds to situations differently, and we're aware of that, but those are the ones we know of. That's our response, proactive response to a situation that we know of, and so this is what we're trying to simultaneously take care of them and give them options that should they not want to come forward to us, but they have a phone number that they can call. It's part of the reason I've been in working with Jennifer Berry and Allison Moore about the chaplaincy program. It's there for the community, but it's there for the officers as well. And if taking care of them again, so that they're in a good mental state and they can be able to care for and attend to the needs of the community.
I really like the chaplaincy side about getting someone else calling and say, how you doing? And just checking in maybe a week later or something like that. When, it's like, hey, I'm okay. You never know how you feel, if you're not sleeping for the next week or whatever. So I appreciate the community support and that connection that can happen when other people are involved too. So that's great.
Thank you. All right, we should have it. We were working on it for a while, and I'd met with a number of congregation leaders, and obviously then our work with EO 203 has kind of taken the priority. So our plan is, to really finalize that and get that done by early spring, and have the basis of that program in place by hopefully May, June time.
All right. Monthly report.
All right. So as far as a monthly report goes, in terms of meetings, just to call your attention on with my report there, I did meet in January with one of our local religious congregations, and this is kind of like kind of in lieu of our monthly conversations with the police. Because of COVID, we were doing those outdoors. We don't do it outdoors anymore, and just with Zoom, I'm not the best with it. So what I've tried to do is really target specific organizations and groups that I can meet with until the weather breaks, and then we'll continue with the monthly conversations. So just to let you know about that. In the detective, for the detectives and the investigations, just wanted to highlight one of their cases regarding theft from the Diamond Car Wash uptown. The detectives have been working this case with a area detectives from some of the area police departments as well. The suspect in this case is someone that we had arrested previously. They did a really good job with evidence processing. We were able to get some DNA evidence, and so we anticipate an arrest in the near future. But just really highlight the fact that it was a great collaborative effort with our detectives, as well as detectives from various agencies in the county, because this individual is responsible for a number of thefts, not just in Ulster, but in Dutchess County as well. So, a really good job by those guys. Bear with me, I apologize. Just going through. As far as commendations go, we had a couple of 3 commendations this month. The first is was for Officers Yeager and Milton. It was a thank you card from an individual who the bike went missing. The officers were able to locate it, return it. So it's just a thank you to Officers Yeager and Milton for their work in that. There was a thank you to Officer Carpinelli during one of our recent snowstorms. He went out of his way and helped shovel out a neighbor their driveway, or shovel out an individual's driveway. So this was actually a thank you from the neighbor who witnessed that, and just wanted to thank the officer for doing what they did. And then the last one is a thank you for Officer Yant. I normally don't identify the individuals, but in this case, I got the clearance. This was from Village Trustee Alex Wojcik, and just wanted to thank us. Our policy, the policy that we have in the practice is for issuing business cards, and identifying the reason that we come to a call and issuing a business card. She is actually the first person to provide us some feedback on this, and was really thankful. She said that it was reassuring to her, it was comforting, just really happy about that program, and so she gave me permission to use her name and to identify her in that. So that was it in terms of commendations. There were no complaints made against personnel for this month, so there's none listed on the report. As far as use of force or defensive action, there are no defensive action reports for the month, but I did want to highlight a few things in that section. The first is that I included the annual use of force analysis. So we complete an annual report about all the use of force that we had in the preceding year. And so this is a copy of that breakdown. There were 20 reports that were filed in 2020 from 13 separate incidences. 3 taser usages, 11 reports involving physical direction of force, and 6 that involve firearms. All of them involving only the drawing of the weapon, no discharge. The one thing I did want to highlight in this, as far as the reporting itself, is that, and it includes in here, is that we make monthly reports to the New York State database on use of force, as well as the FBI database. And in essence, the one thing I point out to the commission is that our reporting requirements are actually more stringent than those of the state and the feds. In terms of qualifying incidences, only 7 of our use of forces qualified for reporting to the state database, and none of them qualified for the reporting to the FBI database. So we file those reports anyway. We file with them monthly, whether or not any qualify or not, we have to file a report with them. So this report itself that you all have a copy of will be part and parcel to our annual report, which will be published. I should have published on our website in March 1st. So there will be a section on use of force, and the information on this will be part and parcel to that report itself, the annual department report. Just to note, as far as New York State goes, just to let the commission know, as I said, we report monthly on certain criteria of use of force. This is by legislative mandate, and DCJS is getting ready to publish this information on their website. I don't know when it will happen. I don't have a specific date, but it's my understanding that sometime in the first quarter of the year, DCJS will have that available, and people will be able to see by agency the use and type of force that New York State has reporting. I don't know if there's any questions. I know I'm kind of going through.
Can you say,
yep.
Chief, how we did on use of force compared to previous years? Did we have fewer incidents? Is this kind of an average year? What give us some context?
We had less reports this year, about a 39% reduction. There were 36 reports in 2019 versus the 20 reports for this year. In terms of use of force, as I said, 13 incidences out of the 17,000 some odd incidences that we, calls for service that we handled involved uses of force. The majority of the uses of force occurred on the overnight shift. And then the next, we had, I think, 9 on the overnight shift and 4 on the 3 to 11 shift. Alcohol, drugs, and or mental illness were a factor in most of them. As far as a breakdown goes, 15 of them involved males, 1 involved a female. As far as a breakdown by race, 12 were white non-Hispanic, 4 identified as white Hispanic. There were a couple of incidences where we don't have any. One incident where we responded to a mental health call. Officers cleared a apartment down in the village, and the use of force. They filed a use of force because they had their guns out and they were clearing that apartment, but it was just to document that there was nobody was involved with it. And then there was the other use of force with the officers that responded to the armed robbery at the Imperial Jewelers. So we do know that 2 people were involved. We just don't know anything about those individuals. So there's no identifying information with either of those.
Thank you.
So the last thing in terms of use of force that I wanted to point out is we received a letter from the Department of Criminal Justice Services certifying that we meet all the eligibility requirements that were set forth by the United States Department of Justice. So in 2020, President Trump signed an executive order that required all law enforcement agencies that wanted to be eligible for any type of federal grant funding that they had to meet certain criteria in terms of their use of force policies, and they had to prohibit the use of chokeholds. And then there's a reporting requirement. The law, the executive order required that every state identify a certifying body. In this case, it's the Department of Criminal Justice Services in New York State. And so the letter that you all had a copy of from them is just attesting to the fact that we meet those certifications. So should we apply for federal grant money, we have to actually include this letter attesting to that so that we'd be eligible for it. And then I think the last thing I have is related to the training report. Just to in January, that not only myself, but several members from the Reform and Reinvention Committee attended Professor Ed Lawson's seminar on diversity, equity, and inclusion framework. This was an all-day seminar that was done through, I think, SUNY Ulster, and also the Benjamin Center had some role in this. It was a well-attended, informative seminar, so that was pretty much it. I don't know. As any other thing on this report, just to note that for right now, some training, we do still have a number of trainings that are suspended. The USER training is suspended just due to COVID until further notice. And the accident and destruction training is also suspended. Don't have any idea when that'll change. And I don't know any questions anybody may have.
I'm good. Anyone else?
Thanks,
No.
Rob. Very thorough report. I was really impressed with the list of meetings and that you've been to in the month of January. I didn't know where you had the time for
Thanks.
to sit down even, or maybe they were all seated meetings because they were most of them probably Zoom. But that was a very thorough report. Thank you.
Thanks,
I'd like
Rob.
to. All right. If that's it, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the Police Commission meeting.
Second.
Second.
Second, Alex.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And with that, I'd like to
Aye.
make a motion to open the February 18th New Paltz Town Board meeting.
Second.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Hey, it's 7 o'clock for the record, and please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did you say it's 7 o'clock for the record?
7:30.
Okay.
Sorry, my mistake. I wish. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the town board agenda as written.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have no announcements. If anyone else has any announcements? If not, we will open the floor for public input. And if anyone has a comment, raise your hand. We'll happy to let you speak. And Mr. Helafi?
Are you calling Tom Jella?
Tom Jelliff, yeah.
He appears to be on mute.
I keep asking him to unmute.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
You did.
Okay,
Oh, there we
great.
go.
Sorry about that. Okay. I'm talking again as a UAC member, as a member of the subcommittee on police reform and reinvention. Up front, I'd like to just congratulate the town on its new website for the Office of Community Wellness. It looks really welcoming and rich in information. Today, I'd like to present some statistics in relating to the EO 203 process that point to the real feasibility of reducing New Paltz Town police staffing, not eliminating, reducing, and budget without reducing town security, and with reinvestment of the savings of bringing real improvements in crisis response and other social support services. First, I'd like to review several findings previously circulated by New Paltz Unified for a Responsible Budget. Policing is a very big piece of the town's budget, 2.9 million per year, accounting for more of the New Paltz budget than highway maintenance, the fire department, the library, youth services, ambulance service, public health, and the rail trail combined. Only 2.5% of arrests are for violent crimes. The largest single type of incident New Paltz police are assigned to is checking on properties when the owner is away. This activity occurred over 4,000 times in a 12-month period, 3 times more frequently than traffic stops. Does it take an armed officer to conduct these property checks or such other high volume types of incidents as requests to check on the welfare of a resident? UAC research has identified the following additional pertinent facts. Over 40% of all arrests by the New Paltz PD are associated with the village late night bar scene, essentially 8 hours a week. We ask whether it's really appropriate for our police to act essentially as a heavily subsidized security force for the bar and restaurant owners. Shouldn't the owners be called on to take more responsibility for the disorderly conduct of their patrons? The New Paltz crime rate, as reported to the FBI, declined 45% since 2010, and by 59% since 1990. In contrast, the number of officers has remained basically unchanged since 2010, and the budget has grown fully 15%, the personal services budget. The SUNY PD is fully as big as the NPPD. No wonder the 3,000 students living on campus report feeling over-policed. Counting the 2 police forces together, New Paltz has 3.3 officers per 1,000 residents, more than either Kingston or the town of Ulster, whose crime rates are 79% and 31% higher, respectively, than New Paltz. This is, of course, without counting the state police and the county sheriff. Larceny is currently by far the highest category of reported crime, but also the one that police have most difficulty clearing up. Nationally, police of towns the size of New Paltz are able to apprehend larceny suspects in only 27.5% of cases, compared to fairly low 64% for murders. We argue that these facts should have consequences. The New Paltz Police Department surely requests increased resources when crime rates rise. The police budget should therefore contract when crime rates have declined long-term and significantly. Such a reduction is especially warranted in the context of a nationwide movement that seeks to correct over and aggressive policing, and also to better meet the security and wellness needs of marginalized communities that too often are most affected by such policing. As is being explored in cities across the country, as well as here in Ulster County, savings from the police budget should be reinvested, for example, in fielding social worker-based mental health and overdose crisis response teams, as well as expanded services to youth, addicts, immigrants, the homeless, and others. With real reductions in the stresses among these groups, there would be less need for the theft that police find so elusive. Thank you. I'm going to submit this as well with some graphs and things.
Camille?
Hi there, Camille again from Senator Martucci's office. Great to hear all the work happening with the police. Chief, everything sounds great. I just want to let you know, with everything happening with Governor Cuomo and the nursing homes, that Senator Martucci has written letters to the chair of the Senate Health Committee, as well as Governor Cuomo and Steve Newhouse, and is requesting that they reassess their formula for vaccine distribution, kind of on the heels of what's happening, that a lot of things went wrong, and that's something that he's pressing moving forward. And there was something else I wanted to mention. No, I think it was the thanking the police officers. Oh, I spoke to our representative at DASNY, And I was hoping to get a list of all of the grants in the district. I'm not sure if I mentioned this last time. The former senator left with all of the information on all of the grants. And we were hoping to at least get them from the back end to be able to help and track them. But it turns out DASNY separates the sponsors from the grants for fairness reasons. So if you guys have any DASNY grants that are outstanding, feel free to send me that information. I'm happy to follow up. My email is o'brienc@nysenate.gov, or you can feel free to send it to the senator's email. If any municipalities around have the same thing going on, please tell them to reach out to us. We're trying to reach out to every single one, but we were left with bleached computers and we're just trying to find our way back to help everybody.
We have a few and we'll be in touch. So we have a
Fantastic.
few that were, sorry?
Sorry, I was just hoping to ask a clarifying question. You said to reassess vaccine distribution. Do you mind just clarifying what that means?
Oh, well, it was actually somebody in another part of Ulster County had asked me to look into it. And as I dug in and was talking to the senator, he told me that they've been looking at basing it on population because Ulster actually got like 10 times the amount of Sullivan County. Sullivan County was only given 200 doses for a week. So they're looking to base it more on population, which likely will boost Ulster County and a lot of our other rural counties that are being told to wait. So more, the city, more urban areas have been getting a lot more vaccines, and we just want it to be more equitable so everybody's small businesses and lives can get back to normal.
Gotcha. And sorry to do another follow-up since you brought up.
Absolutely.
When you say vaccine allocation, are you referring to allocation specifically given to counties or allocations given to the county at large, including pharmacies and other medical providers?
Generally, a number comes to each county. I think it's up to the county how they split those up.
No, that's why I was asking, because the county receives a certain amount, but then the state.
What was that?
I think Dan, we've been having trouble with Dan tonight. He may have gotten booted out, but he'll have to come back. So I think my understanding is that the state, the county's not involved in the vaccines that go directly to the pharmacies. So the counties get their share, but then the state handles like how many doses go to like the nursing homes and the pharmacies, because at least
Okay,
that's that has come up on our like weekly calls with the county. So
Okay, I'm gonna have to look deeper into that because I'm gonna have to look deeper into that because as of last week, the week before, I was told that certain numbers were coming to each county.
yes, certain numbers are coming to each county, but that's so the county distribution sites are getting allocated a certain amount from the state. In addition to that, the pharmacies within the counties, that's not included or part of the county allocation. That's a separate pool that the state is doing, and the counties have no control how much comes to the pharmacies and which pharmacies, I don't think. But by the time Dan comes back, it is pretty complicated.
I mean, I'll look more into that. I know that they were discussing which pharmacies to go to, how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's very stressful for people, and people are, the more information, the better. So anything you can find out would be great.
I was gonna say, I'll look into that tomorrow, and when we follow up with the DASNY, I'll have more information from you.
Yeah.
But I guess just being on the state side, we're just seeing like from the state it going. And I'll ask about the pharmacies and how that's working out and where that's coming from and what the formula is for that.
Yeah, I mean, I know the Ulster County, they could go through a whole week's supply of their allocation in a single day. Like, so the more we get in the county, and I think everyone's in the same boat.
Everybody is in the same boat. I think the number I heard last week was 3 million people trying to get 100,000 vaccines.
Yeah. So
that's why we're just trying to push for a more equitable distribution, because a lot of people are, they want to get back to normal life. A lot of businesses have been struggling for a year and want to get back. It's just a matter of like taking politics out of it.
Yeah, I just got my notice today. I signed up and I'm eligible in July. So,
All right, for the exact letter, I believe Senator Martucci posted it on his Facebook, his letter to the Senate Health Committee. If I'm just not speaking it clearly, I apologize if I'm butchering it a little.
Dan is back now, but Dan, I kind of explained, my understanding is that the pharmacies are given their allocations directly from the state and the county's not involved in that. If I
That's correct.
mischaracterized that. Great.
Cool. All right, I'll look into that and see what I can find out for you.
Thanks. Thanks for coming to our meeting. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll be here as often as I can.
Great, thanks. And so with any other comments? If not, I will hand it over to Janelle, and I'll make you a co-host now, and we can start the greenhouse gas emission inventory update.
I apologize, I was kind of far from.
There you are. I gotta find you on here and make you a co-host. There you are. All right, and I will be quiet now.
Good evening. I'm Janelle Piotr, the coordinator for New Paltz Climate Smart, and we're very pleased to be here tonight. I'm actually going to turn it over to Amanda Gatto. So if we can make her co-host, she's going to introduce our student intern that has been working very hard for many months, and I look forward to his presentation. And is Amanda able to speak now?
Right, maybe. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I'm sure you all remember, these astonishing numbers we came up with when we did the greenhouse gas inventory for local government operations for the town the first time. It was the 2013 and 2016, 2017 data that we were able to gather and look at. And there were some pretty stunning facts that we found. We have been so fortunate to have a student intern working with us, Connor. You're going to meet him in a minute, and you're going to be very impressed with what he's done. Fortunately, Jean Gallucci also helping us with getting all the raw data, and then Connor using that same spreadsheet tool we had worked with before. So take it away, Connor.
Hello, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. One moment. Everyone see it well?
Is that the one you meant to have, Connor, with your notes?
Yes, I just have to open up the original.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Connor Warren. I'm a senior at Walk Hill Senior High School and a student intern for Climate Smart New Paltz. I'm with you tonight to present the 2018 and 2019 greenhouse gas inventory for local government operations in the town of New Paltz. We thank you for continuing to pursue sustainability and being available to hear our findings. That said, I would like to begin with a reminder of what the inventory is, what this inventory does, and what these data mean for us. So firstly, I'd like to begin with a few definitions and ideas. So this inventory tracks local government operations, and that begs the question, what exactly do we define as local government operations? So our definition is that these are the consumptions or projects or facilities for which the town is financially or operationally responsible. So we're essentially looking at all the projects the town pays for and all the things that come over the town's supervision. So with this data, we can find out which facilities are under the town, and we could find out two types of the emissions that the town emits. So the first are direct emission sources, and these come from gases and fuel sources that produce emissions on site of consumption. So these include, for the town of New Paltz, propane, fuel oil, gasoline, and diesel. The other type are indirect emission sources, and by their name, you can tell that they produce the emissions off-site, so we're importing the energy from somewhere else. And in New Paltz, this is electricity. We also have fluorinated gas emissions, but we don't have a reliable method of tracking them, although they still do exist in the town's refrigeration units and air conditioning units, but they're minimal in comparison to what we'd see if we had like refrigerant intensive facilities. So while they're not listed in this presentation, they still do exist. We just don't have a reliable method of tracking them. And our final piece of context has to do with our units. We're reporting the emissions in terms of CO2 equivalent, which is helpful because it gives the warming effect of gases all relative to how much carbon dioxide would match their impact. So for instance, we have methane, it's equivalent to 28 units of CO2e, and nitrous oxide, which is equivalent to 298 units of CO2e. So with this context, we can see that our inventory compiles the usage, costs, emissions, and sorts them by years and types of energy. So we essentially get the energy costs and energy consumption, plug it into our spreadsheet tool, and this allows us to sort our data and identify trends, cost trends, and usage trends much easier than us looking at each bill month by month. And this is the same thing you saw in our previous presentations. I just thought it'd be nice to brief everyone on it and kind of recap because it has been a year or two. Like I said, our process is the same, and this isn't the first time we've done it. So before diving into our most recent findings, I'd like to catch everyone up to speed and kind of give us a baseline so we can see what our most recent numbers mean relative to how they were in 2016 and 2017. So we're going to climb through that data, and then we're going to get to our most recent findings. So in 2016 and 2017, the total greenhouse gas emissions in the town of New Paltz were 655.5 tons. Roughly, and that's roughly the same mass as 325 standard American cars, just for perspective. So if we took all the CO2e and compared it to, the masses of some cars, that's like the equivalence. And what brought us here was an upward trend since 2013. So we've been steadily climbing, and each year after year, we're hitting a new max, and our max in 2016 and 2017 happened to be the 655.5 figure. Looking towards the emissions breakdown, we can see that vehicle fleets are an overwhelming majority of what we're emitting, accounting for over 60% of emissions. And combined in these vehicle fleets, we have two main culprits, the police department and the Department of Public Works. So these combined, they're producing 382 tons of CO2e from their fleets, which include the gasoline and diesel, and then 73.7 tons from running their buildings. So those are the main culprits. And over on the breakdown, you could clearly see that the vehicle fleets in the past, they were our main problematic areas. One important thing we noticed in these years, the temporary town hall electricity consumption jumped by 355% since it moved into the temporary trailer units, which have poor insulation, and that was our main problem last year. And we also noticed changes in the Justice Court, which jumped almost 15-fold. So those were the major things that we noticed in 2016 and 2017. With this baseline, we can kind of get more perspective from what we noticed recently. And as I was compiling data, it did help to see where we performed last year, because numbers really don't mean anything unless you have something to compare them to. So I hope that gives a little bit more perspective towards what we're going into now. Here, our first graph is sorting our average greenhouse gas emissions by facility. So we took the 2018 and 2019 figures, averaged them out, and sorted them by facility. And keep in mind that this is only charting electricity, propane, and fuel oil, because our facilities are buildings, save the recreation, which includes parks and pools. So these are just the buildings. And I'd like to point everyone's attention to our three tallest bars, which are therefore our three biggest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions in New Paltz. The first is the DPW, the second is the temporary town hall, and the third is the police department. Like in 2016 and 2017, these continue to be our main problems. Adding these columns together gives us about 160 tons of emitted carbon dioxide equivalent out of the 296 tons represented in the chart. And because we're just talking about facilities, this goes to show that even if we take the fleets out of the DPW and the police department, they're still the main contributors in our town. And recreation comes close, and we'll explain some of the reasons for those later, but just keep in mind that The DPW, Police Department, and Temporary Town Hall are our main facility contributors. To get a different perspective, we can consider data on all energy sources and sort emissions by function. That's precisely what this slide is for. Clearly, our town vehicle fleet is the largest functional contributor of greenhouse gas emissions, accounting for 1.6 times more tons of CO2e than all other functions combined. The fleet category consists of all our gas and diesel emissions, which dwarf the 296 tons represented by administration facilities, wastewater facilities, and traffic signals. This is alarming. So with that said, we know two things right now. Firstly, the DPW, Police Department, and Temporary Town Hall facilities are hefty actors, as we saw on the slide before. And secondly, that the vehicle fleet is more problematic than all of them combined. And this is a good visual representation of the summary I just gave. It sorts the energy type, the emissions by energy type, and it confirms what I just said about our vehicle fleet. So given the nature of our gas and diesel vehicles, we see that our gasoline and diesel consumption produce a tremendous share of the town's emissions. And looking for the future, we can hope that the acquisition of some hybrid police department vehicles will slice this number down a little bit. And then the gradual expansion of that program should bring these to a more tame level. And here are the numbers associated with them, which again are pretty staggering. And the second point I'd like to make in this summary is that our electricity emissions, especially from that temporary town hall, the police department building, and the DPW buildings, that's responsible for 171 tons of CO2e, and that's an unnecessary emission. Had the town joined the CCA, we could have chopped these emissions down to zero. Say we did that in 2018, we would have an average of 170 tons less, which might be worth considering after this presentation. When we're looking at the financial end of things, we can see the actual energy costs based on bills paid, and we got this data thanks to Gene Gallucci. Looking at all these high numbers, it should come as no surprise that if we can cut even 1% off our energy spending, that equates to $2,000 saved in taxpayer contributions, which is still a considerable amount. Any little percent helps, and that's only 1%. If we key in on this maroon slice here, we can again remind ourselves that this should be lower given the acquisition of the hybrid vehicles. So we're hoping to cut that down a little bit. And then I'd like to move our attention over to the yellow and salmon slices, which are a little bit deceiving because they're quite small, and that seems like a good thing, which it is. I'm glad that it's not more, but the problem with fuel oil and propane is that while their cost is low in a financial aspect, its environmental cost is much higher, so they emit a lot more. So while they're small slices, it's still something worth keeping our eye on, even when they're next to the big 72,000 for gas and the big 90,000 for electricity. So we can't forget about those smaller contributors, which might not be as small as they seem. Now that we looked at the data from 2018 and 2019, we can start making comparisons between the previous years, like we did earlier, but this time we can see more long-term trends. This table depicts the annual emissions data by function from all the years we've captured it since 2013. There are a lot of numbers here, but I'd like to draw our attention to the categories highlighted in red because those are our main increases that we're concerned with in this presentation. Firstly, in the all administrative facilities category, we can see, well, sorry, one moment, I accidentally skipped ahead. In our all administrative facilities category, we see some wild increases from 2017 to 2018 and 2018 to 2019. And it's more than we'd seen in other years. Like I said, we had an upward trend, but these stood out in particular. Dropping one row below, we see the administration facilities jump higher than it had before, and then kind of come back down naturally in 2019. And one row below that, our vehicle fleet had a tremendous increase, going from like the low 400s and high 300s all the way up to 581.9 tons of CO2e in 2019, which again points to the vehicle fleets being our largest culprits. And going one row below that still, we kind of find some good news. Our street lights and street signals went down 3 tons, which was significant relative to the change in the other years. And we attribute that to the transition to LED lights in our street lights. And we could all be proud of that. That's something nice to see amid all these like spikes in consumption and emission. This is essentially that same data, but just arranged in a different way. So we could kind of identify some of the main actors. And here we see that the electricity in 2018 spiked. We're attributing this to some factor or some consumer in one of the town halls that might have been using up some electricity, perhaps a vending machine, a different appliance that drove that number up a little bit and then was abandoned in 2019. But it also could make sense because it overlaps that increase in consumption in administration facilities. But also we can't neglect the fact that our recreation increased in 2018 due to the pavilion being rented out and public rentals in that aspect. Jumping down to 2019 in gasoline and diesel, again, our vehicle fleets jumped, and we'll touch on why recently. It has mostly to do with the DPW. I'd just like to give this one more representation of this same data in the form of a graph because it kind of puts things into better perspective. I like this one best because it has less numbers and it's a little bit more palatable. You can really see that upward trend in red. If we took a linear slope from 2013 to 2019, we'd be increasing by about 46 tons per year. So we're kind of going in the wrong direction in that area. And then I'm just drawing our attention back to that green line, which is where we would be had we joined the CCA in roughly 2017. So we'd be significantly lower. Of course, we still are going upwards, which is not where we want to be going, but any dip is a good dip, I suppose. So if we were just that much lower, that would save quite a significant amount of emitted carbon dioxide, even though we would still have to remedy the reason why we're going upwards in the first place. Seeing this data is important, of course, but I think more important is understanding why it behaves this way, because that's where most of the change occurs. And if we can only understand what happened, it doesn't really give us a good action plan for the future. We saw mostly increases, and we eliminated the idea that temperature played a role in our changes. So we looked at average annual temperature data, and we didn't see any correlation between temperature extremes and energy consumption. So we can't necessarily boil our changes down due to like a stronger winter or a stronger summer. We didn't look at the monthly breakdown, and that might show something different, but for the most part, we don't think like, there was more energy needed to heat places or more energy needed to cool places. So we kind of eliminated that variable from the jump. As for particular departments, the DPW was the main driver of the fleet increase, and that was because they had a large number of projects and they had to fuel rental vehicles, which proved itself to be highly emissive. In the pool, we had 2018 and 2019 consumption kind of returning to a typical level. So it wasn't necessarily an increase. It was just returning to where it usually is. And that was because some liner issues and maintenance problems forced it to open a little bit later in 2016, 2017. So what we saw was just a leveling off of a dip earlier. I mentioned this earlier, how our recreation centers are rented out to the public. And those, obviously, the outlets there consume energy, and we had sensor lights added to the building, which drove our consumption up slightly. And for the reuse center, we still need some more investigation. In terms of decreases, this list is a little bit shorter, and I want to be careful with what I consider a decrease, because most of them weren't decreases by the conventional sense. They were just natural falls from earlier highs, and they weren't driven by conscious effort. So things just happened to tend back down this way. And a good example was the police department fuel oil and propane, which trended downwards, but we couldn't identify any reason why that happened. And the same thing with their electricity. This is just a natural bounce between 99,000 kilowatt hours and 93,000 kilowatt hours. It seems to be a billing issue rather than like a significant change. So just how things get grouped together. And then our good news, this is the authentic decrease, the streetlight district, as I mentioned before, and the LED light bulbs. So that's been a success, and we're happy to see that. Just as a little bit summary before I conclude, in 2018 and 2019, our average emissions were 786.8 tons of CO2e compared to where we started in 2013 and 2014 with a much smaller 609.24 tons. If we look at the breakdown, we can see that vehicle fleets are still our major contributors, and it actually became more so a contributor now than it had before. We're up to 62% of our total emissions coming from the vehicle fleets, whereas in 2016 and 2017, this was only 60%. Both the police department and DPW increased their consumption, both from their buildings and their fleets. And this growth in the wrong direction between these two departments alone points to a bigger problem in the town where we're continuing this upward trend, and our emissions are just getting taller and taller each year. It might be a little bit different in 2020 given the circumstances, and there was less usage, I'm sure, so that might skew our results a little bit, but by and large in normal times we're seeing things go in a positive direction in the sense of increasing, but a negative direction in terms of impact. The temporary town hall remains a major contributor, and some of those decreases that we saw weren't necessarily decreases. And finally, the town, we could have dropped 170 tons of electricity driven emissions by switching to renewables. This list is not exhaustive by any means, but we felt it was important to provide some concrete suggestions. Merely identifying the issue doesn't really do much, so we figured if we continue to pursue and adopt renewable energy, that have a significant impact. If we continue to replace gas-powered patrol cars with EVs and hybrids and expand our program in that sense. If we continue to replace streetlights with LEDs, and if we continue to make these new energy efficient facilities like we've seen in the police department, which is going to be driven just by electricity rather than having any other fuel sources. I'd like to make my final conclusion with 3 questions. Where are we going from here, and what's the next step for sustainability New Paltz? We touched on a few suggestions before, but these aren't exhaustive, and I'd like everyone to consider where we can go next with this, even stepping outside the boundaries of the outlines we included before. Secondly, are we doing all we can to minimize the town carbon footprint? This is something that it's even important to ask ourselves as individuals, and I find myself reflecting, and it kind of gives us a good path on where we can go in the future. And how can we use these data to fuel municipal and personal decisions? I'd like to thank all the people who helped create this template, and thank you to Gene Gallucci for providing the data and the Hudson Valley Regional Council for constructing the spreadsheet tool. And lastly, thank you all for your time. I appreciate your continued support and making the time to listen to this presentation. And I was just wondering if there are any questions or things you would like us to investigate a little bit further.
Yeah, I do. This is Neil. Thanks. It was a great presentation. I really like the trends. I mean, a few suggestions. I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss the temperature data. I think that you could, maybe some more work could be put into, instead of just looking at the average annual temperature, I think that probably really misses a lot of the details in there. So, you know, if you had like really cold days and, you know, really warm summers, if you're just looking at average annual temperature, it all just gets missed, right? So I think you have to look at maybe degree days, or certainly cold snaps in the wintertime, right? So I think that would be pretty useful. You know,
Some a couple of oh, sorry.
So, you know, you may have to break it down by month, and like, so along the same lines for the highway department, you know, the trucks, Chris could talk more about it, but those trucks have been running 24 hours a day now. So, you know, I think, you know, the number of storm events that we have, if that is really different from year to year, I think that you're going to see big differences in fuel consumption. So that may be something to do. As far as the CCA, we're going to be talking about that in a bit. half of our buildings are not eligible to join the CCA. And those are the biggest use buildings. It's because we have their demand accounts. So most of our accounts and most of the big accounts can't join the CCA. So we're not eligible for that. We're gonna discuss moving the non-demand accounts over to the CCA. But yeah, no, I'd like the talk. I think it's good. I think we really have to. I like the trends, but I think for us to make some decisions, certainly we need to dig a little bit deeper on some of the issues. So some of them just get kind of missed. So like the courthouse, the electricity use went up, but fuel use I'm sure went down because we switched away from oil consumption and put in electric heaters. So our electricity went up, but it's because we're not using the oil anymore. So we got to look at the data behind the trend, but I think this is a really good start. And it's troubling that our usage has gone up, and I'd like to know why. And this is a good way to start. So thank you for doing this.
Just to provide some more context on the temperature stuff, definitely I think we need to get like a monthly breakdown of temperatures, because just a few months can completely throw our data. But in terms of snowfall and weather extremes, I did look at the data for 2018 and 2019 in terms of the number of consecutive cold days that went below freezing and the number of extremely hot days that went above 90 degrees. And those seem to level off and be consistent between the years. And they might have actually gone contrary to what we observed in terms of our increases. And the same with snowfall, that I did get a monthly breakdown on, and to see if that would play an important role in changing our DPW's fuel consumption. And it seemed like it actually might have, I want to be careful here. I'm not sure it went opposite to what we would expect. I would have to look into that, but I don't believe it supported an increase in DPW fleet fuel usage. Though I'd have to confirm that. I know it didn't support, but it might have ran the other way. But yeah, the monthly outlook would be an important step to take in confirming
or
some of the things.
maybe degree days. I mean, that might be you might be able to get that data. So just something to look at. But this is a neat study, so it's fun. I enjoy talking about this stuff.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we have on the call also Connor's high school teacher, and if we could just unmute him for a second, Samrat Pathania. We are very grateful for Samrat connecting us to Connor as a student intern. It's been just fantastic to have Connor on board, and with Amanda's mentorship to really accomplish this. Can Samrat speak?
Thank you, Janelle. I just wanted to say this is just incredible work, given the civilizational level crisis we find ourselves in. I think this is work that really needs to be done in every town, every community. It's wonderful that Connor, he's a high school senior. Right? We have to remember he's a high school senior, and this is the work that he's done here, of course, under the guidance of Amanda and Janelle. We're very lucky that in the town of New Paltz we can do this. But Neil, I do want to push you all a little bit and say that I think we should really be looking at drastic reductions in our emissions. We are no longer in the place where we can say that even being flat is okay. That, even if this was a flat line, we are just no longer in that place. And especially the data that Connor pointed out about vehicle emissions. In New York State, as the state as a whole, 36% of our greenhouse gas emissions are because of transportation. And this is right in line with that. So I think we have to explore every single opportunity to bring down our emissions. I know we can do it. I thank you all for supporting this work, and well done, Connor. Wonderful.
If I can just add one thing. So Connor's not only done this work with us, of course, and he's also said he's willing to help us do the same thing for the village for those 2 years. But Connor has fallen in love with our spreadsheet. He finds it to be a very valuable tool, and he's actually considering a project working with schools. So maybe Connor, do you want to say just a couple of words about what you're thinking about there, what you're going to try to do with the schools?
I'm essentially trying to like revamp the same tool we've been using to account for some of the missions that come from our schools, because as we've seen, this tool didn't necessarily account for the schools because they're like a separate entity altogether. So my ultimate vision is to have the schools in Ulster County collaborate and have students in each school work on the same type of inventory for their district. And then bringing these together, we could have the 3 schools compare their findings and present them to Ulster County, like on a county level. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do with this here.
This guy is gonna go far, isn't he?
Connor, I just want to thank you so much for the presentation. And I think one of the observation that I have is it is a real pleasure to see somebody your age giving us a presentation that's data driven. So many of the presentations that are at the high school level are concept and written driven, and they're lovely to read. But I think for us to really make a change and understand how drastic that change needs to be, having data driven presentations are a great, great start. So congratulations. Very well done.
Thank you.
I'd like to say, Connor, amazing work and really impressive, your data crunching and analysis. It's really compelling, and you've given us a lot to think about, and I really appreciate it. And coming, sometimes the messenger matters, and so coming from you, who's inspired us, to see a young person obviously interested and so capable and articulate. I think you've done a great job. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'd also like to thank Amanda and Janelle, because they both helped me a tremendous amount with drawing some of these conclusions and compiling the data. So I would like to thank them because they've been extremely supportive and helpful throughout this whole process.
Yeah, we always thank Amanda and Janelle. And but we want to thank you today, Connor, because that was a stellar presentation, really smart presentation, and very compelling how you put it together and how you got us through it and took us through it carefully. I really, really applaud your work. And thank you for it. I really appreciated Neil's pressing you on. He's a scientist, so he's going to press you on the details. I'm a summary guy, so I just appreciated the end result, which is we're going the wrong direction. We're going the wrong direction, and we got to turn the direction around. And I agree with Julie, especially when that comes from a high school senior reminding us that we're going in the wrong direction. And so thank you for that message, and help us figure out where it's happening, and so we can address it as best we can. And I love the work you're going to do with the schools, because I think that is so important. And there's so much energy being used in the schools. So if you can get the schools on board also, that will be really, really great. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
One thing I wanted to add was, I know we can do better, obviously, and we all know that. And, how to help us do better and help the community, do better, help us, the government, and the community as well. A think tank would be wonderful. I wonder if there's, even some young people, who would like to do that. Samrat, is there other students maybe like Connor that might like to come together and put some thought into, learn about what Connor's found out about the, where things are coming from and what are some creative solutions?
Julie, I think there is a lot of interest from younger people. I think as long as the adults are willing to then move on them, I think we could, this is happening across different school districts. So yes, we could follow up on that later. Thank you.
Great.
Are you all familiar with this organization called Lifeboat? You are, Janelle, you know that? You know them? Yeah, I got a chance to meet with Matt Stinchcomb of Lifeboat, and really trying to direct his attention to what we're doing in New Paltz if he's not already connected to it. So I know he's trying to get communities to start working together on. I can't imagine other communities are working as hard as we are on some of these things. So Matt is really interested in seeing where it's working and how to get different communities collaborating on climate smart and those things.
So I'll just say one more time, fabulous presentation. you're better than the first presentation I gave while I was in graduate school, which was horrible. You're really talented, so thank you very much. But I want to say, I think one of the important things to point out is that it's useful doing this in any town, because it gives you a starting point to talk to any town, the next town, right? So I have learned a bunch, but I think a lot of these things are universal across municipalities. So we can then, I think we can go to other towns and say, well, what about your non-demand accounts? Can you put those into a CCA, right? And so this is useful, and you make change by, pushing people and getting that change going. And I think you really got us moving. So thank you. Just to kind of follow up on, stay tuned, and I'm looking forward to next year's report, because I think we're going to have the LED streetlights for all of the streetlights this year are going to be converted to LED in the town. It takes a long time to get we've started this process back in, I think, 16, and it's finally happening. Courts and PD are going to be all electric with the new building. And we're going to be having a discussion. The next speaker, Jeff Demansky from Jewel, we're going to be talking about converting any town account that is eligible, putting that into the CCA. And then we're going to work with Jewel to try to figure out a way that we can get the other towns into the town's other accounts, the larger ones, into a green energy system. So thank you for doing it, and we're working on it, and hopefully we'll get better. So, and with that, if anyone else has any comments, we'll move on to our second presentation.
Actually, just Neil, really quickly, obviously Amanda and Janelle, we love you guys and you do so much for us, but Samrat, thank you so much. Being a teacher right now is so difficult. So kudos to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And so, Jeff, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Neil. Yeah, this is Jeff Demansky, and that was a great presentation and great transitional statements made there. One, for Connor, I've taken your name down, and Connor, put April 14th on your calendar, because there's a new program at the Duchess BOCES, the Center for Sustainability and Climate Education, and there's a summit that's happening on April 14th, and I'll reach out to Amanda and Janelle to connect with you, see if you're interested in presenting there or talking. So I think it might be an interesting event. And also in a transitional statement, yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about a program that we are doing with the town and 9 other communities, and we're giving a bit of a progress report that we shared with the communities recently on the Community Choice Aggregation, or the CCA, as we keep calling it, program. And can you guys see my screen? See the slide? Nope.
Yeah, I could see it, but now I'm just seeing, there it is.
Okay, good. I just wanted to jump. I didn't hear anybody say anything. Okay, so this, again, this is a progress report, and we shared a link to a recording of this progress report. And I'm here with Glenn Weinberg, who's with Jewel. And I'm Jeff Demansky. Our information is in the center of this slide, and I am the local partner to Jewel to serve as program manager for the Hudson Valley Community Power CCA program. And we are in heading into the last of the 4 quarters of the 2-year contract for the CCA program contract that we set up. And we created this progress report to give a customized view of how the program has been doing in several ways. And it's quite a bit of information. So we thought the best way to approach it, Glenn and I, was to record a webinar, share it with the communities, and it's posted to Jewel's YouTube channel. So available for everyone to be shared, and everyone can view it. But then we wanted to come and just give a synopsis of the presentation, answer any questions about it, our brief synopsis, but of course encourage people to view it and contact us. So our contact information is here with more questions. And so what I'll do here, I did present to Marbletown, and we try to be respectful of time and to keep this thing very brief, because we do have the backup of the recording. But I'm just going to do, this is, since we're not going to movie theaters anymore, I'm going to treat this thing like a preview of what you can see in the recording. And, but certainly glad to go back to anything in detail and talk at depth about anything that I show quickly. But I'm going to do a meta presentation and show you in the summary of the slides what we talked about and some highlights. And then I'll hand it over to Glenn to fill in gaps and to take us forward generally about what we're doing. And just the three main points about what we're doing here is to give you the overview of the presentation, a brief version. Again, answer any questions, delve deeper into something that we have here or more generally. And then, but especially to highlight next steps, because we are coming to the end of what was the original 2-year contract. And so we're in the process of engaging with all of our partner communities to think about what comes next. And that's presented within as well. So after my title slide, this was our agenda in detail of what's in the presentation. So we talked about program highlights and overview. We gave some updates specifically for our partner communities, including some other CCA activity that's happening and new communities coming on board. And then we dig into performance of the program in several key factors. And then we focus on community solar because there is an evolution. It's happening in all aspects of the energy grid and the energy marketplace. But under the CCA umbrella, which I'll talk about in a second, there is more opportunity and exciting opportunity around community solar. So that's what we delve into. And so there are next steps, both for the two components of the program, which I'll highlight here. So in the overview section, just want to give you the overview that with CCA, we're talking about two parallel opportunities. There's been most focus on the electricity supply portion of the program. The idea that there's an aggregation of communities get together to create a new choice set around supply. And so that is what we've offered to all of our 10 communities. And we did focus with all of our 10 communities on providing in an opt-out program. So we had very fantastic participation rates of the community members with 100% renewable electricity supply in our program in the current contract. And it offered a certainty, a low, fixed, very competitive rate. So that's the electricity supply portion. We also, as New Paltz is certainly aware and was a great partner for this in doing outreach, offered the volunteer opportunity to opt in to a parallel opportunity, a subscription to community solar. What we're moving to, it's really more of an umbrella with the anticipated consolidation of billing at Central Hudson, where everything will be done on the one Central Hudson bill that people already receive. We're moving towards an opt-out for electricity supply and the ability to do an opt-out for community solar. So that's why we focus a lot on the community solar at the end. But this is a way, and what's been offered through the opt-in program, it's really a relative no-brainer, where you can subscribe and you facilitate the creation, the operation of a solar field in Central Hudson territory. And as a reward for that, you are targeted to receive, it targets 10% savings on your total electric charges. And there was an additional benefit that was baked into the Joule model to share in the savings that they save in the commission of the project to create a sustainability fund and a fund to support COVID relief when the pandemic hit. Both of these programs are focused on reducing carbon emissions, looking on the right side of the slide. Both of them focus on electricity cost benefits, while very much what's baked into these programs as well is the idea of consumer protection. Many people, through the thousands of conversations we've had, have expressed concern, consternation, have shared bad experiences they've had in the energy marketplace. And that is very much one of the fundamental reasons why this CCA program was enabled in New York State. And so that is what this partnership does. And with Joule in the lead, it vets these opportunities to make sure they're very community member friendly in terms of transparency and flexibility and freedom and no hidden charges. So then we shared a highlight slide in our presentation, and we talked about it at depth. And this is where we revisit some of those benefits of the program. There were significant electricity supply program benefits. The 10 communities that represented about 25,000 households in the 100% renewable option, saving significant amount of greenhouse gas emissions avoided. Our program, with its fixed rate, where the one potential challenge of the program, the one potential downside that people ask about on the electricity supply side is what could go wrong, is that we are always in comparison to what the utility rate, what Central Hudson's rate, which varies, could be. And we do show the performance chart in here and talk about it at length. And the pandemic did drop utility rates quite low, even below our program rates. And so we estimated across all of our communities, the impact was $5.50 per household per month difference. So a little bit more than $60 per year difference for people paying for the 100% renewable rate versus the non-renewable rate from the utility. So on a pure cost level, that's, it was not the outcome that we had sought, but it's still a very, very competitive rate. And in an apples to apples comparison of what people could obtain for 100% renewable comparable product, what we provided was much better. And that's also shown on the chart coming up. And again, in navigating the energy marketplace, we were there and supported a number of community contacts, over 7,000. The community solar program in the opt-in that we supported across our communities was very successful. Over 800 subscriptions in our partner communities, each of them saving about 10% on their total electric charges. And overall, we helped catalyze 9 solar fields in the Hudson Valley here in Central Hudson Territory. Looking ahead, again, this is the overview slide for the whole presentation. The things to think about in terms of what's new and what's next is the renewal of the electricity supply contract and the conversations we'll have about that, and about what's happening with community solar. And now we'll move just a little bit quicker about what's in here. We did also do an analysis based on some data available to us, including the actual usage data of our program, to see what impact we had on total electricity greenhouse gas emissions. Electricity associated with residential and commercial, small commercial usage within our partner communities. And this is a graph showing the green bars showing the impact of our program. In a ballpark sense, there's a little discrepancy in data. We used a report from 2012 that had community level data. That was 2010 data. So there's some, it's not a perfect graph. It is based on our current usage from the program, but it shows that, for most of our communities, including the village of New Paltz, town of New Paltz, and Red Hook, which I show on this separate graph, it's about 50% of the residential and commercial electricity use was displaced by participation of our community members in the CCA 100% renewable rate. So not insignificant. Shows there's still work to be done, but not an insignificant impact by the program. Partner communities update, just to let you know that we're in conversation with the existing 10 communities to talk about renewal. There are at least 4 other communities that are going to join with these 10 communities, and we hope all 10 do go through the renewal. So that we're looking at least 14 communities that will be going into the new contract that will start in July 1st of the coming year. But it's also worth noting that in the upper right of this slide, there's a logo that is for the Rockland Community Power Program. And that is the second CCA program that we launched just this past fall, in the fall of 2020, with 6 communities that are all in Orange and Rockland territory and all in Rockland County, actually. But a sizable CCA, and it worked. Even in this time of pandemic and the economy being upside down, we were able to meet the requirements of the program to the satisfaction of the communities to launch. And it's more than 35,000, I think, when we launched, eligible customers in that CCA. So moving forward to program performance, we did talk about the participation rates, and I know Janelle and Amanda have been very, very interested in what the opt-outs look like. And we did show that in this chart, we show the program start date, and then in the middle column, the third column, the number of accounts at start. The fourth column shows as of October 2020, how many accounts were still in the program. And then the last column is a net attrition rate. And this shows that the net attrition rate for the town was about 10%. And it speaks, there's a story here. It speaks to the flexibility of the program, that there is this ability to opt out of the program at any time, and people were taking advantage of that flexibility of this public benefit program. This is the chart I was referencing before, where it shows the comparison of our program rates to the utility rate, and in an apples to apples comparison, a renewables to renewables comparison, what is the private market rate that someone could anticipate getting as an individual customer entering into a contract. And that individual customer contract line, that's not our program, it's not the utility rate, is the top red line, the straight red line. It's about 7.5 cents. And so all of our program rates are below that. Our 100% renewable rate is the yellow line, which is at 6.36 cents per kilowatt hour. And we did include a second optional rate, the non-default rate, the blue rate, which is our standard rate, which is a fuel mix that mirrored the utility rate, that mirrored the utility mix of nuclear, fossil generation, and some renewables. And then the roller coaster line, that is the utility rate. And we talk at length in the recording about the story about what's shown here. The impact of a mild winter in 2018, 2019, and then showing right in the middle of the chart that major dip that happens from April to May is the impact of the pandemic on the economy. But otherwise, there's expected movement here, seasonal variations, higher rates at the utility in the hot summer months and the cold winter months. But two interesting points that we talk about at length is if you had transposed the line without the pandemic dip and the regular variation, it's very likely we would have been cost neutral or potentially even cost positive, to make up for that earliest dip in our program. And we did end up here with our chart showing through the January 2021 rate for the utility that it is right in the neck of the woods of our program rates. And so, we do also, this begs the question about what does the future look like, both for the remainder of our program and for what's the potentials for the next contract, what will come out of the next request for proposals. And this is a chart that Glenn spoke to, talking about the market forwards. And Glenn, do you want to talk at any bit of this here, or should we just kind of save it if there's questions? How do you feel?
Yeah, I think we can move forward just for the sake of time, though. The story is mirrored here in the market forwards going forward, looking at 21 and 22, to the story that Jeff just told about the rate sort of looking back. So, but yeah, I think we should sort of leave it for now and we can come back to it there.
Yeah, the general story is that things look good for the future, and we can explain why, or we do explain why in the recording. And then community solar. Again, this is worth just revisiting, and just, this is my menu chart that I've shared at all of our public meetings, just emphasizing that the electricity supply part of the program is a separate and parallel opportunity to what a customer can do with solar. And you can mix and match these opportunities. And what we're moving into, what we're talking about is both of these options, community solar and CCA, with community leadership, with consumer protection baked into it, can both be offered as opt-outs, which means that participation in community solar can be 10 times or more what it was through our opt-in model, which has fantastic impacts for local solar projects and market signals for the future of renewables being put onto the grid. This is a busy chart that we talk about, but it's a wonderful story. These are the sustainability and COVID relief funds that each of the communities derived from the opt-in community solar programs. And there's wonderful details about the use of these funds. The New Paltz jumped ahead on this and did both a sustainability fund with a to be determined on what we'll do with those funds. But they quickly switched to COVID relief and raised over $3,000 for the family of New Paltz to support feeding folks in these challenging times. And the one takeaway, again, with the story about where we are going with the program, these sustainability funds can be significantly larger for the communities to dedicate to the purposes that they see fit through an opt-out program. I mean, significantly larger. So really exciting how there's just wonderful symbiotic opportunities that the program can yield. And this is further description about what the Community Choice Renewables program is about. It is that mirror image or that parallel image to what CCA has provided, where the community enters into an agreement to secure supply from local solar farms on behalf of their customers. And it's something where logistically it's predicated on that consolidation of billing by the utility companies, which Glenn and I just exchanged, is anticipated by April 1st. So in time for the renewal of the program, which will happen in the middle of this year. And then these are the key takeaways of what Community Choice offers. You know, similar to the Community Choice Aggregation Supply Program, no member of a community is in a contract. There will be no second pill. You're prevented from having a credit check, which other community solar providers may require. And Joule is doing this already. They started 2 pilot programs in upstate New York in September 2020. And so it's being tested and it's working and it's really exciting. And then for next steps, this is 2 slides on this for the electricity supply contract renewal. We have our progress report in which we summarize the progress and reporting that we've done to date for the program. And we're presenting to all the town boards and city councils and village trustees as soon as we can, hopefully this month, still scheduling. We're hoping that each community will pass the renewal resolution, the template that Joule has developed in March, with the intent to issue so that there can be a seamless transition once the current contract ends at the end of June into the start of the new contract in early July. And then for the next steps for community choice renewals, it's passing a resolution of intent, which is now Joule has created 1 resolution for both supply and community choice renewables, or for the opt-out community solar. Marbletown has passed a resolution back on the 19th of January. You can speak to them if you want to talk to another community that's already taking steps on this. And then Joule will issue a separate RFP, request for proposals, for community solar projects to gather the supply for the communities that want to do this on behalf of their community members. And one of the significant benefits to highlight, generally these programs are great in that they serve as a vetting and an interpretation of some challenging, you know, the energy is a second language for everybody. And there's customers that have real challenges. The CCA program, the ability to fix a rate to be competitive to obtain renewables is wonderful, but it not offering a guarantee excluded some customers who could really benefit. In particular, as shown in the last point here, folks who are on heating energy assistance program, heating bill assistance programs. And so they were not able to reap the benefits. Through a opt-out community solar program, they can be included. They're not excluded, and they can obtain significant benefits through that. And so it just speaks to the promise and benefit of these programs in delivering wider spread benefits to take advantage of what's really increasingly good opportunities in the energy marketplace. And I will leave off again on our contact information. This is a team. That's our general, my organization, Hudson Valley Energy, and my team shown there. That is our program helpline. Please feel free to call at any time. And Glenn's information is right there at the bottom. So that's our movie preview of our agenda. Happy to go back into anything. Glenn, do you want to add anything before we stop and take questions?
Yeah, just a couple things. Thanks, Jeff. First is that you should have received already by email a draft of the resolution we're asking you to pass, which gives us, Joule, the go-ahead with the RFP and look for a new contract for both electricity supply as well as community solar. The town is under no commitment at this time. It allows us to go and explore those opportunities in the market. So you should have received that by email. Please let us know if you don't have it. We can certainly resend. You should have also received a redlined version of the electricity supply agreement that you signed in 2020 for you, redlined against that version. So there's been a few changes since. So that should be for your counsel for your attorney review. We can also send you a clean version of that same agreement because it gets a little bit busy. And really that's essentially an attachment. If you recall, that agreement is an attachment or an exhibit to the resolution. So that's the agreement that we hand to the suppliers when we go out for RFP, so they know the terms that the town has agreed to ahead of time. And then the second point that I wanted to make, just in terms of that conversation, Connor's presentation on the town's accounts. So as you mentioned, that the non-demand accounts can absolutely take advantage of the CCA rate that the other residential and small commercial customers take advantage of. But the demand accounts, there's absolutely, just because they don't necessarily benefit from the same CCA rate, they can absolutely take advantage of the CCA and leverage the collective buying power of the town and the other communities to get a rate for renewables, just a demand rate. So an appropriate rate for the service class of those accounts, they can absolutely sign up for renewables. They won't necessarily be under the same terms as the rest of the CCA, but can absolutely benefit from the CCA and sort of piggyback on that effort. And we can help you talk more about that separately or offline about how the town's account can be included in this procurement effort. And we can get all of the town to a renewable rate. That's what we're doing. So I just wanted to make that point on the last comment.
Well, thanks a lot. I'll follow up with you guys tomorrow on an email, and make sure that we have the red line, non-red line, and the resolution, and we'll talk about the piggybacking the demand accounts on to the CCA. So I appreciate that. I have one question. So you mentioned that it did, because of the variability with the Central Hudson rate, that the average was $5.50 more per month. But I'm wondering, does that what if you had signed up for solar and you'd saved 10%? Does that overcome that $5.50? Because I'm saving at least that much every month by getting solar.
Yeah, it's pretty comparable for the average customer. The average customer will pay between $75 and $100 for doing community solar. And that $5.50 a month gets you to about, $70. So it's pretty close. The community solar for the average user should get you, even if that trend were to continue, which we're confident it won't, that will be much more cost competitive as the economy comes back in the next contract, and we'll take advantage of the low natural gas prices as they are today in this procurement process, as that we didn't have that advantage last time. But even if that trend were to continue, where the average customer was spending $5.50 more to get renewables a month, community solar savings should make up for that, and that's some. Yep.
Jeff, Glenn, I have a question. Because we are at Wallkill, Connor and I have been working on a project to get our school to sign up for community solar. And it's been a long project, long haul, 2 years. And despite the fact that we use 1 million kilowatt hours and our savings would be thousands of dollars. Is that something you guys could help us with, kind of approach our administration with some numbers? Would that fall under your thing, or is that not something that you would take on as a project?
No, we're happy to help. Absolutely. It's certainly within our scope. And, there are special considerations with schools. So as I'm sure you've learned, you're probably, even more well-versed in that than I am, having gone through this. But so there are special considerations there, but we absolutely can help and serve as an additional consultant to try to get a good contract for the school.
That'd be great, because Connor just made a presentation to the school the administration a couple of days ago. So we'd love to follow up with some hard numbers and keep going at them. Thank you.
Yeah, we would certainly need to see the bills. I mean, we don't have to see account, you know, we can scrub them before we see them, but we certainly would need to see the bills if the school's open to that. So we understand usage, service class, et cetera. So, you know, if that's possible, then.
Okay. I'll reach out to you on that number, right? The one that you put on the presentation. Is that good?
Perfect. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Like 2 questions? So is this new contract going to go through the same PSC program? I mean, the same requirements as the first time did? You have to still go through and do the steps and get the public information sessions and all that and document those?
They're not quite the same requirements as the first time, but it'll look very much the same because we'll be doing lots of the same types of activities. We will be doing public information sessions. We will be, of course, sharing information over social media and in the local press and placing ads. You know, so it'll look very much the same, but from a regulatory standpoint, a renewal doesn't have to go through quite the same steps as an initial launch, but you know, to the community, it will be pretty much identical.
And then, you know, it's kind of disappointing to see that New Paltz did have that only 50% of our, I mean, do you have some thoughts about how to try to help the folks that are, I mean, do we just leave them alone, or do we try to in some way you know, inform and entice people to not drop out, you know, to stay in the program? And I mean, maybe they were just looking at I mean, Central Hudson's very nice about showing you what you would save if you'd stayed with their rates. You know, they throw that in your bill every month. So that's kind of yeah.
Jeff, do you want to speak to that?
Well, I think it's really exciting about the potential to roll in these opt-out community solar with it too, where it just is such a, we can easily make the argument now, just, you know, to Neil's point, that you're going to be kind of insulated and guaranteed savings by staying in, you know, the one program. And I think that will just, you know, from a behavioral perspective, it's going to promote them to stay with both programs, double their environmental impact, you know, with simplified financial transactions here. I think it really will up the participation levels and make it so much easier for everyone to feel good about just taking advantage of the symbiotic relationship that's created by this program.
So maybe one of the things is, clearly there's the public information sessions in the beginning trying to get this redone, but maybe we shouldn't then just forget about them for the next year or whatever. We should somehow come back once in a while and remind everybody, re-inform them, you know, of some of these things, because, you know, it kind of gets lost. Last year was, you know, quite a year. A lot of stuff got overlooked. So, yeah.
Yeah, you know, we've always been very, very big on transparency and disclosure and the like, but we certainly weren't trumpeting loudly to talk about the challenging months, especially when the pandemic hit. But we, you know, again, we always do promote transparency and always had these comparison charts available and the like. But we do anticipate a much, you know, rosier story because you know, it's not the main driver, and people have lots of different drivers. But economics is the common driver. You know, it's one of the things that most people pay attention to. So it's certainly hard to not pay some attention to it.
I have a question about along those lines, that 50% of the people were not in the CCA, if I understood that graph right. But could that 50% include people who were already in a green ESCO, or maybe they were a commercial account that wasn't eligible to join the CCA? Is that?
No, well, first of all, there was, you know, not everyone was in it, but we only had a 10% attrition rate from those who were eligible, you know, starting with the 1768 as I'm showing up there. Yeah. The 50%, it's a little bit dicey in terms of the numbers. Like I said, I was using different data sources to compile these numbers, but it showed that for what had been, you know, based on 2010 emissions data, what had been the, you know, for using our factorization, the emissions associated with residential and commercial electricity, the displaced usage by the participation in the CCA, that was the 50% number. And that is not a perfect representation. There's definitely more refinement that can happen to improve this numbers. It might be actually higher, you know, relative impact, because it was, as shown here, a lot more people in. So it wasn't horrible, and you can see, you know, of the
but it could be like,
had a relative,
you know, commercial accounts, SUNY, big, you know, a lot of the accounts just, you know, we only lost 10%, right? It's just a lot of the people that, you know, they just couldn't join because they're not even, maybe some of them were either in another green energy supplier
Yep,
or
very
they just
possible.
couldn't even join, right? So like the town's demand accounts, which I hope we can get to, we're going to work on that.
I had a quick question. I'm always concerned with, you know, sort of equity with these kinds of programs with community power. And I'm wondering, do you guys present your information in Spanish?
We do, yeah.
My website, I was going to say, well, my website is bilingual, you know, because I agree. It's a real high priority for us. And much of our stuff is, our program materials have been translated into Spanish. So yeah, I agree with you. It's really, really key.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are just a lot of people who will read some of the information being sent to them and either linguistically they're challenged or conceptually they're challenged, you know, and really understanding at a really basic level, why is this good for me? If I don't have a very deep understanding of how the electric system works, how do I make this decision? So I guess it's also the material.
We definitely agree. We've been playing a bit of an advocacy role as well too, where we've actually, we created a utility bill, understand your utility bill course that's available on our YouTube channel. And we did it with Central Hudson. And so they were great in so many ways, really great contacts and worked with us to even improve upon the materials they had to make it a little more accessible. Yeah. And we recorded it in Spanish as well. But we also pressed them for making their bills available in Spanish, which apparently is a work in progress. So we're needling in that way. But yeah, and so Glenn knows that we continually press for that interest, you know, for the contracts to be available and the like too. But it's a big field. Mm-hmm. There's challenges, but we're working on it.
That's great.
We have that available. Anybody that calls up that wants to speak to somebody in Spanish, we have that available as well. So
yeah, got great team members.
Are you guys at all, you know, when I look at my bill, the electric part of it's one thing and the delivery charges are something else. So even though I can save money on the electric supply, the delivery charges are like, sometimes they're, you know, it's like 2/3 of my bill. So is there anything going on anywhere in the state about, or with PSC, or somebody looking at that part of it?
Well, there always is. There's always, you know, there's always plenty of scrutiny on that, you know, in terms of how the utilities are able to justify and or increase their delivery charges. It's always a contentious process in Albany. It's one that is that electricity CCA electricity supply can address only the supply portion, but the good news there is that the community solar discount is off the whole bill. So it's a discount off the whole bill, which takes into account both supply and delivery charges, as well as all the other taxes and fees that are, you know, on the Central Hudson bill. So that is really the most effective way today that individual consumers can kind of cut into those delivery charges.
Another good point to make. Thanks, guys.
Great. So any other questions? And maybe the next item on our agenda is, and maybe Jeff and Glenn could stick around for just a minute, but we're gonna, you know, looking into this, you know, we were kind of hoping to do all of the town's accounts at the same time, but we realized it's going to take longer to do that for the demand accounts. But I think we're going to work with Glenn and Jeff to do that. But in the meantime, you know, about half of the town's accounts are eligible to just opt into the CCA. And so, you know, but we need board approval to do that. And so my motion to the board is, you know, I'd like to make a motion to opt in, you know, any eligible town accounts into the CCA. And then, you know, if we can also opt them into, you know, solar, you know, I'd like to do that as well.
I'll second that motion.
But we may wait for it's going to drive our staff crazy if we get 2 bills in the beginning. And so, you know, maybe we can wait until we get the single bill to opt them into solar.
The good news is you won't have to wait too long. Central Hudson is saying April 1st, they'll be ready for that. You know, you do have to find a solar farm that's using that. And so not all of them are planning to necessarily use that. So that is a condition that the solar farm has to have determined that they want to use consolidated billing. But otherwise, as soon as Central Hudson gets their system up and running, which we're fingers crossed that they stay on schedule, that'll be available. And so, yeah, I mean, I think at this point, it probably does pay to wait until April 1st, but once they're ready, you can get right on there.
Okay.
Glenn, what I kind of remember is that to get switched over, I mean, you have to get out of whatever contract you have to, I mean, it took a little bit of time. I mean, unless you're already a Central Hudson customer, or maybe that's the case.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe it won't be as hard. It just seemed like it took some time to get switched in, So.
Yeah, it takes time to get switched in. You mean just to the regular CCA rate? Is that what you mean, Amanda? Yeah. Yeah, it takes time. It's part of a process that takes, once we've got a new contract in place, it's about a 2-month process. So there's an opt-out period that lasts a month, and then there's another month after that, essentially to process all the enrollments and get people switched in. So it does take, and then you don't see the change until the next month, because until you get your bill, for the following month. So it does take a little bit of time, but it's about a 60-day process.
And but the Neil, I don't think you would Direct Energy accept I mean, it's only not even 17 accounts. It's maybe 9 accounts or something. Would they have any problem accepting new accounts that hadn't been identified in the original New Paltz bucket?
Yeah, you can always opt into the CCA.
Yeah, no.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I see what you're saying. You're saying in the existing, for the last few months of the existing contract, yeah, you could opt in, and then it'll take another billing cycle or so to make sure that you're absolutely on, but shouldn't take more than that. Yeah.
Great. So anyone willing to second that motion?
Second, Alex.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion? Aye. All right, great.
Fantastic.
Thank you. And I'll be in touch, Glenn and Jeff. Thank you, and we'll keep moving forward on this.
Thank you so much, guys. Great working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, DuPont guys. You guys are awesome. I've got to run. You guys are wonderful. Thank you.
All right. So the next is number 4. We at the last meeting we interviewed some planning board applicants. We have a planning board appointment as well as a
Alternate.
Sorry, I can't believe it's 9 o'clock already. But and so I just wanted to open it up for discussion, and we can talk about it. And we kind of left the vote open because we thought someone else might apply. No one has applied, so I'd like to vote and see what the board thinks tonight. So,
Neil, I wish I had said this, in an email earlier or something, but it seems like we could possibly go into executive session to discuss this.
I mean, when there's jobs,
Not
like
personnel.
for
I know, but is that something we could do though? That's what I'd like to do. So
if Bill Kimball was here, he would say no. It is not a matter of personnel. This isn't a job. We're not interviewing someone for a job. We're discussing something that our constituents would like to hear our discussion, and not. I think this would not be allowable for executive session.
I see Terrence put a thumb down. Terrence, thumb up?
Yeah, I actually agree with Neil on this. I don't think this qualifies as executive
Sure.
session material.
I'm just asking because I didn't know what you're saying. I understand.
Does anyone have any? Does anyone want to make a motion? I think like we said, I think they're both very qualified. They each have some strong points. I think
I would say I think we were lucky in that we have 2 really good candidates. I've known David Gilmore for a long time. He's been involved in our community a ton. And I apologize because it's 9 o'clock at night, so I can't remember the name of our other applicant who was really good, but my preference.
Jennifer Wells.
Jennifer
Thank
Wells.
you. My preference would actually be her in this instance, because I think it would be great to involve people who haven't been involved before in the community and who are interested in doing so. And I would love to also file away David's resume should we have another opening on the planning board.
Or see if he wants to be an alternate right now.
Or an alternate, yeah. I don't think we can go wrong with either, but my preference would be to let someone who hasn't had the opportunity to serve, who wants to serve, to do that.
And can you just repeat, Dan, how has David served in the past? Can you remind us?
Yeah, so David was on the Historical Preservation Committee for years, a while ago now. He was also the village planner for a period of time too. So he's been very involved in the community, and that's a real positive. I just also like the idea of potentially engaging someone new, and I think that we could easily ask David to take a role as an alternate, or if we had another opening, I feel like I would hope he would still be interested, and then we can maybe look at him. So for me, it's just about kind of diversifying who we have and involving new people. It's not an anti-David thing by any means. I think he's a great guy.
I did like Jennifer's background. It's, the exact details are not coming to me at the moment, but it had to do with housing and I really did like how she, answered the questions, and I thought she had a lovely demeanor, and I understand what you're saying, Dan. So.
Yeah, I agree with Dan. I really like the idea of having somebody serve who has their first chance and who hasn't done it before. I think that you bring a lot to the table from what you've done before, and a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of interesting ideas. I like the way she spoke. It doesn't mean that both of them aren't very qualified, but I definitely second you, Dan, on that. And you, Julie. You're muted, Neil.
So Dan, is that a motion to appoint Jennifer Wells to the planning board and David as an alternate?
I would just say, since I think we're having a good informal conversation, that before I do that, because I feel like since we like both candidates, if I do that, this will just be done. I'm open to hearing somebody else say they disagree or think we should nominate David before I make that motion.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, I'm not saying anything because I like both candidates quite a lot. Jennifer has a background in affordable housing and was working on affordable housing in the village, evidently, before she moved out to the town, and she couldn't work in that position anymore, and she wants to continue to work for local government. I like her experience in Newburgh. Really like the affordable housing piece and that sensibility. I'm also extremely impressed with David's background and his ability to hit the ground running for the planning board. Planning board is a lot of work, and it's a lot of work, and some people do a lot more than others, and it's work that really needs to be shared to do it well and for people to take projects. And I think they both showed a tremendous amount of sincerity for doing it. Just a little concerned that Jennifer heard that there's not much work to do on the planning board, and I was like, whoa, there's a ton of work to do on the planning board. It's not to be taken lightly. It's a real big deal. The fact that she said I'm game, and all her experience shows that she is willing to jump in almost anything and work really hard. Kind of allayed that concern for me, but I'm willing to go in the direction that's been proposed.
I mean, the comment that David, that response did worry me as well a little bit. I think people don't realize how how much work the planning board is. And that's if you're not even like trying to affect change, right? It's a ton of work. And the more you put in, the more that the town gets out of anyone that's on the planning board. So, I mean, I really want anyone who's on the planning board to like step up and give it 110%, and my, one of my initial draws to David is that as a professional, he knows exactly what he's getting into. And so I wasn't too worried about him, being on it for a little while and saying, holy moly, I can't believe how much work this is. And I can't believe how much I get yelled at. Hopefully, David sticks around and we can, use him, for another board or something else, because I really think we need to take advantage of, one of the things that we're lucky to have in New Paltz is a lot of really good people who are willing to volunteer. Like, that kind of showed up when we had the community preservation committee. Like these people like just floored the consultants. They were like, you got these people working for free. These are professionals. And so I'm either applicant I think is great. I think we can't go wrong. So. So we have a motion. More discussion.
What's that now?
I mean, if any other discussion?
It's a difficult decision, but I will move to, seems like the way the board is going, which is to appoint Jennifer Wells. Is there a second?
That.
Was that a second? I didn't quite.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's a second.
No more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'd like to make a motion to ask David to be an alternate pending another opening on the planning board. He's obviously an excellent candidate, and it was not anything that he represented that made us pick Jennifer. It was, to me, it was.
Yeah, no, I like that motion.
Yeah, I'll second too. That's great.
I like that motion. That's a good one.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Let's see here. So now we're on to review of this.
Neil, just from a process standpoint, who makes those calls? Is that something that you do?
Yeah, I can email or Kathy can do it. I'll probably reach out to David.
All right, it automatically happens, though. It doesn't need to be followed up on that. That happens. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And so this next one, this is just, Chris is here still. I want to have a conversation about this came up at the last department head meeting. Wanted to, the spending freeze and the procurement policy. Chris wanted to talk to the board about maybe kind of tweaking it a little bit, just to make sure that it's flexible enough to kind of handle, day-to-day issues that are coming up, or maybe Alex knows more about it. And I said, I'd be, the goal of the spending freeze is really to kind of make sure that, people think long and hard. And I think Chris is, we're not going out and we're not, just spending money on all new tires for the trucks. It's really like, we need a new tire because this one, got a hole in it or something. And so, anything that we can do we don't have to, Chris doesn't feel like he's hamstrung to get his day-to-day work done. It's also different now because yes, we're still in the pandemic, but it's February. It's not the end of the fiscal year when we put this in place. And when we put the spending freeze in place, it's like we were trying to make sure that we had enough money for the end of the year because the revenues were down. We're now in the kind of the first quarter of the year. And so I kind of trust department heads to make the right decisions, and hopefully, we're not out of money by June, which I don't think that's going to happen. But so I said we would have a discussion as the board, can we tweak this spending freeze to make sure that we're not making it overly difficult for department heads and especially Chris to get the job done that they need to get done. So
I'd
Chris,
love
if
to
you
hear
have,
Chris's proposal, yeah.
Yeah, all I'm looking for is, we're going to follow the standard procurement policy. Requisition, PO, then an actual purchase order, then order the part. What I'm trying to get away from is I can request, like, I'm just going to make up a scenario. You all meet tonight, you have a meeting and you approve expenditures. So tonight I go out and I blow 3 tires, or I blow a hydraulic line that I can't. Besides calling it an emergency, I would have to put in a purchase order request, wait for you to have a board meeting in 2 weeks. Then someone has to transcribe the minutes, let finance know that, yes, this was allowed. Then usually 2 to 3 days, depending on how busy finance is, to create the purchase order. So I have one in hand to order the part. We're having a large problem with finding parts. COVID has reached out, and it's amazing the stuff we order and the stuff that shows up isn't even close. It's like, well, we found it on the shelf, we sent it to you, which creates even more backlog. I'm not looking to circumvent any legal or the legal process for requesting funds through the town. I'm just looking to get away from the 2-week waiting period asking for the board. Like Neil says, we're not going out and I'm not buying tinted windows for the truck. I'm buying, this is the meat and potatoes of spending that we do every day to keep a truck fleet running.
If I can add to one of the things, I talked to Chris about this, and just from like a business standpoint, what he was explaining to me when I asked him a bunch of questions about this is he can't get the funds to be able to do this right away. He has people standing around. They're just waiting and waiting and waiting for this. So we're basically wasting money, because you have somebody for half a day that's just sitting there waiting because they can't get the part, because we haven't met in enough time to be able to give them the funds to be able to get the part for the guy to work. So for me, I was concerned about the work section as well. It's not really just the part, but it's what that causes. So it's the ricocheting of that consistently not being able to have us meet in time to get the funds to him. So as long as he's following all the protocol and filling all the vouchers and doing everything that he does in order to get those important parts, I think it's important for us to allow him that leeway to be able to make those decisions that he has made so well, to have his guys keep working, guys and gals working consistently.
That makes a lot of sense.
So does this just go back, Chris, to like the old way you bought everything? Excuse my naivety. Like the old way we've done everything? Is this a complete reversal of that spending freeze in this case, or not necessarily?
No, it is, with the caveat is, with Jean has made it quite clear, and we've learned more through her, that we have to have when the auditors come down and they audit the books, they have to see that the purchase order request date is before like the part I ordered date. So if it says the 12th and I had the receipt that says the 11th, and I'm breaking the rules. So it's helped us to understand that more. But on the same hand, that's created a lag, which it's normal. You know, emergencies happen, you know, which, Neil's been very helpful with. Gina is, if it's something that we need absolutely overnight, we can't wait. We can get authorization. We attach the email, as long as it's approved, the auditor to see that. No, all right, we're just not doing this willy-nilly. We did get the permission for it. But more to your answer, yes, David, this would be pretty much on how we've done it since I've been here in 2012.
Yeah.
We're just taking out that extra layer.
Thanks.
So, so my motion is, just to kind of lift the spending freeze and return to the normal procurement policy, for the highway department.
And why wouldn't we be doing this for all departments?
No one else has really had the same issue. I think a lot of what Chris does, the nature of it.
I get that part, but are you just welcoming I understand, like, we're gonna have a problem, and if it's not happening tomorrow, it's happening the next day, we need a part, whatever. I totally get why that happens in Chris's department more than everyone else's. But do we want to be consistent across the board?
I mean, we could do that and see how, and if reassess it at the 6-month mark for the year and see how things are looking with, how we are as far as the budget. And I think that might be a worthwhile way to do it because we did make very tight budgets this year. And so, we could go back to, putting it back in the hands of the department heads who know their budgets better than we do, for the most part, because.
Yeah, that'd be my motion, and that we agree to reassess after 6 months and see like, hey, are we okay? Until we feel like we're out of the water on some of the financial challenges.
Okay.
So that the
Motion would be to lift the spending freeze and return to normal procurement policy and reassess it at the 6-month mark.
You said
to
it
see
better.
how
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you,
Thank
Chris.
you.
Chris.
Thank you. I think
Next
I'm on
one.
the next one too.
Yes, this is the approval of the Highway 284 agreement for 2021. So this 284 agreement is.
Is for the tinted windows, Chris?
Yeah.
At the antenna bobber too.
This is highway law that the superintendent submits a form for how highway funds are going to be expended for maintenance on the roads for the coming year. This gets filed every year. The town board will approve it, and now we can move forward. And so this is submitted. There are 2 roads on here, and a description of the work that's going to be done and the amounts. And my motion is to approve the Highway 284 agreement for 2021. And if the board has any second and discussion, and if they want to ask Chris anything.
Just I think Edgewood was on this one, right? Ed,
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and Chris made me go out and look at that terrible road. And
I gotta say, I was like, that much money? It's such a short road. And I was like, well, I don't want to go out in the snow because like, I'm not going to see anything, but I just went to like Google Earth, which is really easy. And I can do it from my desk while I'm eating lunch. And on 2000, the photos of that road, the street view are from 2012. And I'm like, oh my God, in 2012, it looked like this road was ready to fall apart. We couldn't believe it.
I couldn't either.
And it looks like the projects, we haven't gotten the total number in chips yet. The state's doing a lot of different things. We won't have it till March. But it looks like all the road projects we'll be doing will come out of the CHIPS funds. So we won't have to touch the allocated budget other than normal repair. So, which should be part of the 6-month discussion, before we even start spending large amounts of money on roads, where we're going to be at the end of the year, because we might have to tweak something. So I would definitely just going to sign a 284 form, which really puts me in charge of spending those funds without any further board discussion. But would tell you all that I would like to have a discussion if I have to dip out of funds other than CHIPS funds, that we're given by the state. And it's not for permission so much, but so we know where we're going to be at the end of the year. If we have to, there's really only 2 budgets in town that's going to make a big difference, and that's mine and the police. So better to talk about it and we tweak something than get to the end of the year and go, uh-oh. So I'm willing to do that,
Thanks, Chris.
over and above. I think it's important.
Yeah, put us on your agenda for that 6-month thing. I think that would be great to have that discussion.
Okay.
And that road looks like it needs it. So good choice.
So I second that.
Yeah, you want to, your motion, Alex, is to approve that?
My motion is to approve that.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you again.
Next one is, this is the approval of a plow sale. So correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, we have an old plow that doesn't fit any of our trucks. Nearby town has a truck that will fit this plow. We're not using it, and we're gonna sell it to them, and we're gonna make some money, and they're gonna get a plow.
Motion to approve the
Correct.
plow sale.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Well, the town, maybe that town can send us a thank you, so.
I'm sure you will.
All right, well,
Thank you.
all in favor? And it clears out we get some extra space in the yard, I'm assuming.
Yep, it helps.
So the consent agenda, make a motion to approve A through J on the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, and so just so everyone's, one of those is to, Chris is going to be working, we're going to apply for some grant money to fix a culvert in town. So we'll see if we get that. Number 9 is a motion to accept the resignation of Teresa Hart from the New Paltz Police Department Dispatch.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Teresa.
Item 10 is, Chris is still here or not, he may have something to weigh in on there, but there was it was a water leak at ShopRite. And so quite a bit of water leaked out, but they have to, even if water leaks, you have to pay for the water that leaks out because it did go, you used it. But the bill is for like $20,000, but because the water leaked out and it's such a large bill, I would like to make a motion to waive the sewer portion of this bill. So I'd like to waive the $19,396.82 because that water did not go into the sewer. And I think that it's kind of a nice thing to be able to do for them. They have to pay for the water. It's going to be a big water bill, but I guarantee you, if we don't waive it, the first thing when they get that bill, they're going to come back and be like, "What can you do for us?" And I'd like to be able to say, "Well, we've already waived the sewer part. We've done everything we can." So,
I do have a question before you vote on that.
yeah.
I looked in the town code book and I could be missing it. The only thing I found, and this is probably something we should address if I hope I'm missing it, is under 137-20 in the water section, installation and maintenance of service pipes, sections D. Whenever a leak occurs in a service pipe at any point between the main and the meter, which is what happened, they must be repaired immediately by the owner or agent of the premises in accordance with the provisions subscribed in the section. If repairs are not made within 15 days after notice, such leaks, the town board may shut off the water until such repairs are made. The town board reserves the right to repair any leaking service pipe without notice and charge the expense therefore against the owner of the premises. And then it gives some stuff about collecting. I know the village has something in their law, and I apologize because I didn't find it. I didn't have time to read it, about recouping funds for leaked water, but I don't see it in our code.
Well,
Are we going to get in trouble by billing?
The village billed us already for this. So we have the bill. And so now, and maybe that's how they're doing it. The village is billing us to recoup the funds. And so now all we're asking is that they pay the bill that we received from the village for this.
Okay, I'm just not finding it in town law, which, again, I might not be correct, which I'm probably not, but maybe it's something we should adopt or change, because from what Tim's email was, that the village has specific wording for that.
Yeah,
So
no, we should.
We should probably adopt that. I mean, this was a significant leak, which created other problems, and I appreciate everyone working with me, because it was, you shut down a whole plaza and a healthcare center, and it was under concrete, under a loading dock. Nothing was easy.
Yeah.
Chris, what caused the leak?
It was just a radial crack fracture, but the ground shifted, and unfortunately we've been getting a lot of those. I'm doing more water main breaks lately than plowing. So that time of year. But it was an 8-inch main which flowed a lot of water for their sprinkler system. So it was unmetered to begin with. It just, but we can calculate to a point on how much water, was leased. And I think we're very conservative in our estimate. I'm just looking at the code, the gentleman who owns the plaza seems pretty good. I mean, I'd complain about spending money no matter what. But I think we should look at the code and maybe revamp that.
Yeah, no, I mean, the other thing is like, we fixed it. And we're not charging him to fix it.
We didn't, no, he had an actual plumbing crew there. The only thing I did was there 2 nights shutting valves off.
Yeah.
He actually paid people to do it. They literally dug down 15 feet by hand.
Wow, okay.
I was just there.
Okay, I thought you guys were there doing it, so that's.
No.
Chris, what's the change you want to see exactly?
I'd have to read the village code, but I would like to, in the simple terms, I'd like to be able to, in town code, recoup water that is lost due to a service main break, off the main, that the owner hasn't had to either refuses to fix, doesn't fix, or doesn't, or in the time that it takes him to fix, him or her.
Hey, Chris, would you?
I'm explaining it poorly, but
Chris, would you be willing to check out the village law and come back and help us
Sure.
move forward on that if we need to?
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, I imagine all we'd have to do is just adopt what their wording, put it in ours, but yeah, I'll submit that. I'll get it from the village and I'll send it out to you all so you can read it. That's all I'd say.
But the sewer part, Neil, is, a gesture of goodwill. Does the town have to pay the village for the sewer part?
It never went into sewer.
Oh.
It went into storm sewer. So it never made it to the sewer plant.
But the $19,000 gets charged to them anyway?
No, well, yeah, it would be because the sewer bills are based off of your water bill.
I got you. Okay.
And
I'll second that. I get it. I'll second that motion to eliminate that charge.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next one, this is kind of just a regular discussion about the consulting costs for an applicant before the planning board. So we have, our attorney has kind of informed us, you guys have all seen the letter, we have some costs now that they've gone above and beyond what we're allowed to charge the applicant for seeker. You are limited on what the consultants can charge an applicant based on the total cost of the project. And so this, now the town has to decide whether or not, we're going to pay these because the applicant does not have to pay these charges. Our consultants have already done the work. And so now, we owe people money and then the town has to pay for this. I'm not really happy about this. I'm kind of want to just have a discussion about it. I'm not sure we need to vote on anything tonight. I think we want to hold off a little bit and maybe the applicant will eventually pay this money. But my main concern is that I really do not want this to be a problem going forward, and I don't want this to be a problem again. And I would like to ask the chairs of the planning board and the ZBA to kind of figure out a way that this doesn't happen in the future. And I think one of the problems is that, a member of the board will say, well, maybe we should also do this type of study or this type of study. And it just gets added on. And it costs, in most cases, it costs the applicant thousands of dollars, but in this case, it's costing the taxpayers thousands of dollars. And I think that we need to put some sort of mechanism in place that, these decisions cannot be made by a single board member. That the chair of these boards can ask for a vote if they feel as if these charges are going above and beyond what's reasonable, and that a majority of the boards need to decide these things. I think we can't tell the planning board and the ZBA how to run themselves, but this is, Dan could weigh in here, but the school board has done things like this in the past. The town board has done things like this in the past where, a single member will be running up attorney's fees, and we've kind of put mechanisms in place where, the board has to make these decisions. I don't think it's fair that, we could say that the town board doesn't get to decide, but we do get to decide because we control the money and we set the budgets. And if the planning board runs out of money in their budget, they have to sit there with no attorney in the future. And that doesn't do anyone any favors. Then they have no attorney sitting there and giving them advice if they've spent all their money in the first 3 months of the year. And this will be if we have to pay this bill, this will be a significant portion of their annual budget.
Neil, is there a way to do, this may sound, I don't know, but is there a way to do a cap? So in the future, you say, this is going to get paid and here's the cap?
Hey, Alex, yeah, it's interesting. There is a cap in the law, which is what we kind of blindsided here a little bit, because this is a project that is not that expensive. Normally, these projects are so expensive that the bills never get close to that percentage. But this is it's a controversial project that we wanted a lot of studies done, or the planning board wanted a lot of studies done, and bills started going up, and we had a very astute applicant who was like, you guys, you got to tell me how much this is going to cost, because we have laws against, overcharging on this kind of stuff. And they let us know, they were warning us along the way. I think it's fair to say that, to Neil's point, our planning board chair and our planning board attorney are well aware of the issue if they were not completely aware of it before. And I trust that it won't happen again. The real case is in this case is, well, what do we do now in this application? And I would like to just suggest we sit tight. I think we heard from the folks at Homeland Towers. They presented to us, if you remember, and they were concerned about the fees and were asking about them. But they also did say that, hey, are we going to move this thing forward? And how high are these fees going to go? They weren't saying they weren't going to pay them, but I think we have to be very, very conscious about any further charges on this deal that are not absolutely necessary, because it's coming out of our pocket at this point.
David, but yes, I think that this is somewhat of a unique case, but a few years ago, there was an applicant that had a simple lot line revision on Plains Road, and it cost them $30,000 in consultant fees.
Neil, I couldn't agree with your point more. I think we as a planning board, that planning board members as a group need to say, yes, we all want this study, not this is going to appease this member or that member or what have you, and everyone gets to decide what studies they want, because there's a limit, and it's also becomes a place where people do not want to do business, and we don't want people not to want to do business in New Paltz, or to get their lot lines revised if that makes sense for what they're doing.
And what I'll say to that is, some people will say, oh, well, that's just the cost of doing business, right? We want to be very careful and cross every T and dot every I, and we have to do every study. But what happens if we do that is the only people who are willing to come here and build projects are the companies with deep pockets. Like we love our local businesses. And if all we do is torture applicants before the planning board, we shut out our local businesses, and we only allow big corporations to come into New Paltz. So that's why I think we need to get a handle on these costs.
Well, I agree. I mean, people, say that all the time. We can't do this in New Paltz because they're going to make you go through the ringer. It's going to be impossible. I mean, it's known. And I think that as a business plan going into the future for development of people who don't have deep pockets but are doing interesting projects, I think we have to be really conscious of that.
I wonder what we can do different, because I remember, Neil, you saying that exact same thing, I don't know, some time ago, years ago, and I totally agree. I'm just wondering what we can do,
Well,
how is it going to be, how can it really happen this time?
hey, Julie, I mean, I've been asked by the planning board to make an administrative report from the town board back to the planning board regularly. So what I will do is report on this meeting and ask that the town board is really interested in seeing some mechanism, like Neil talked about how we use our whole planning board to decide what is needed on projects, what consulting studies are needed. Sometimes there are 4 or 5 consultants sitting at the desk, and I don't want to knock that. Sometimes you need it, but sometimes the billing that is rung up in those situations is so exorbitant. And there's some of it in this case that we're like, just can't believe some of the billing. So I think it's really important that we kind of set that tone of our desire for that, and see the planning board take the lead on how do we do a better job of controlling costs
So we're
for
asking
projects.
them to figure out how, I guess, is the idea, right?
I would say so. I'd like to see that. They know their business better than anybody about what they need. Because we also want scrutiny on projects that need scrutiny, but not everything doesn't need every tiny little bit of scrutiny. I mean, there's a balance. So what is that right balance?
And the worry is if you run out of money, you'll be sitting there with no consultants. You won't have an attorney, you won't have an engineer, and we don't want that, but we can't bail you out.
So Neil, how do we move ahead with this? Do we need to make a decision now or no?
No decision. I think we, it's mostly a discussion, and I think I want to have it as a board to see if there was kind of a general consensus that this is something that the town board is interested in. I think it is, and so I think David can go back to the planning board and the ZBA, because it's not just the planning board, and it's in general, I think, and those are the only boards that have the consultants on them, and so it's highlighted in this case from this applicant, but I like the idea of universal policies. So
I'll bring those concerns back to the planning board and let the planning board know that right now we're going to just sit tight. We're not approving those bills or not approving those bills. I think we could talk more about this, but I think our attorney is willing to work with us on some of the billing on this as well. So I think right now we just sit tight and not approve paying these bills just yet. Let's sit tight. Is that what you're suggesting, Neil?
Yeah.
Thanks, David, for doing that.
All right. So yeah, we don't have to make any decisions on. The next one is a motion to approve the appointment of Kathy Preston as the Community Preservation Fund Advisory Board Secretary.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next one is a motion to approve authorization of transfer of $6,500 from 2021 4125 budget line computer reserve to the Police Department Computer Reserve Fund.
Second.
And it's, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve the February warrant, the amount of $1,399,499.27.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Another 73 cents would have been a lot easier for me on that one, but and other than that, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Nay.
Okay. Hey.
See you later, everybody.
Buddy.
Thanks.
Bye.
I did come up with an answer about the program.
Great.
It actually is a separate program. It's the Federal It's in the name, Federal Retail Pharmacy Program, so it bypasses the state. You had me really scared that I knew nothing about it, so I dug into it, and there's a reason I didn't know anything about it.
Oh, okay, yeah, so we're not involved. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll look into it if you want me to, but I think you'll get a quicker response from the congressman.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for having me. Take care, guys.
All right.